Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the season finale of the SimRacing International hosted UKSimRacing GT3 Championship Season 16 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. That's right folks, we're here live from circuit side for our season finale, and indeed what a finale we have in store. 9 weeks of racing have set us up for an absolutely brilliant peak conclusion to the championship, and with all 4 of our drivers' championships absolutely up for grabs, and a team's championship that has been concluded at the very top, but there's plenty of guesswork to go as to who's going to finish second and third. Well, we couldn't ask for a better concluding round to the season. And what a venue we have as well. We are here in the United States of America at the Watkins Glen International Circuit for what is expected to be a fast, furious and free-flying round of racing. And well, talking a little bit about a venue, the mecca of road racing in the US of A, and arguably the revival place of road racing after the Second World War. We are absolutely blessed here today. We're a 3.45 mile circuit, 11 corners in totality, that is going to see our drivers absolutely push the limit from start to finish as they look to bring their championship campaigns to the ultimate and most likely a positive conclusion. But where are our manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from circuit side as you tune in today on the one and only channel you can catch all the racing action, and that's of course on YouTube at SimRacing International or SRI. If you search for that on YouTube, you can be tuning in and join the likes of many, and we do give an immediate shout out there to Cy Hartley, who says good luck everyone and good evening to your site. I hope you're doing well, and we do hope to see you in the Evo class going racing today. Indeed, we've got you on the grid, but I think you're in the pit lane at the moment. Just check it in. And well, we wish you the best luck. Indeed, we wish all of our drivers the best of luck today. And one driver who wasn't able to make it, but I know he's tuning in right now, and I believe he's got a projector on his wall, is none other than Alan Lever. And I hope you're doing well, Alan, as well. And for all those of you guys and girls tuning in, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi, because the only biting we do here is not with our verbiage. It is indeed with the braking into each and every corner on our driver's carbon ceramic brake discs. In the quarantine booth, I have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX1 or Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I shall be bringing you all your racing action as it unfolds. And indeed, as we see how it all concludes. And in terms of our schedule for tonight, because this is our first live broadcast this season, all preceding 9 broadcasts have been post-round, but you're getting to see it live tonight due to scheduling. It's worked out a treat, and we couldn't ask for a better way to wrap up the season, could we not? Our schedule is as follows. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC. And as we can see, in just over 10 minutes time, we'll make our way into qualifying for the final 4 flying laps for every one of our drivers as they look to try and seal the deal, putting themselves on pole in class, if not overall, after which we'll then see our drivers make their way to the grid for our 60-minute feature race finale. All of our races have been 60 minutes in length, but this one is just going to feel that little bit longer because the finish line is truly off in the distance, and they'll all be charging towards it, and it'll be the final checker flag of the season, and with it the championship conclusion. But as we come into this round, it's only appropriate, of course, that we do tell you a little bit about the story so far and what is lying in wait for tonight. And as we can see, we have made our way all the way around the globe, starting all the way back on the 28th of September at the Red Bull Ring, a circuit that is absolutely synonymous with the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship. And indeed, many of you may remember some of the biggest moments in the history of the series, including seasons 12 and 13, and many of those highlights being in the intro reel put together by alumni from UKSimRacing of Matt Edmondson. And Matt, if you're tuning in today, I hope you're doing well, good sir. But as all the drivers made their way around the Red Bull Ring, we got to see Simnor Racing really take to the very front of the field. But after that, the team had to move elsewhere, unfortunately, due to personal circumstances. And indeed, I think they had conflicting schedules, and in the end, it opened up a door at the very front of the field. And at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico, our first ever visit there for the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship, we got to see some absolutely incredible battling on the 5th of October, all the way up and down the field. And one name that really surprised everybody in the Evo class was Thomas Weston, with some absolutely audacious driving, but to be fair, he showed his pace and bared his fangs very early on in the season. Then in round number 3, it was at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, and it was Ford versus Ferrari, Joe Nathan versus Richard Simnor that took the headlines, whereas the battling further down the field was plentiful, with Samuel Clark in the Premier class continuing to impress. In round number 4, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, many of our drivers being caught out there with serpentine sequences of corners, and we saw quite a few drivers end up making haste to the wall. But it wasn't the walls at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit in round number 5 on the 26th of October. Indeed, many of our drivers keeping it nice and clean, and there was plenty of fighting up and down the field. We then made our way into the second half of the season, with Sebring International Raceway on the 2nd of November really being a true classic with battles running rampant. Indeed, there was very little to separate all the drivers, and the same could be said at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache, albeit we prefer to now name it as the Autodromo, none other the Autodromo Ricardo Luis Pereira, given the fact that the Portuguese driver absolutely delivered and and dominated in the Premier class and put together an absolutely scintillating lap to put him right at the front of the field overall. Then in round number 8, we made our way to Japan for the Suzuka International Racing Course, or what was really a swimming pool there with absolutely abhorrent and inclement conditions, but our drivers all survived it very well, and Ricardo Luis Pereira being one of many to impress there. And last time out, it was a game of the King of the Mountain in round number 9. And on the 23rd of November, we got to see many of our drivers make their way to Australia for the Mount Panorama circuit, more commonly known as Bathurst, in reference to the local city. And, well, there it was very interesting across all 4 of our classes, because it was a 4th win of the season in the elite class for Richard Simnor, with Joe Nathan struggling to a 3rd place finish by comparison. And therefore, the favours and the odds have now seemingly favoured Simnor for DCW Racing, but you can't rule Joe Nathan out, particularly when he does have the accolade of racing on home soil today, and that always gives the driver an extra 5% of an advantage. In the pro class, meanwhile, well, what we got to see there was a 5th place finish for Mikey Story, the championship leader, who seemed to struggle. But to be fair, I think he's also playing the numbers to just make sure he brings that title home, as you'll see on the points chart shortly. Meanwhile, Krista Halsoy was only able to manage 3rd, and therefore it was a bit of a missed opportunity for Halsoy, as the man who took victory there was none other than Nathan Anstis in an absolutely classic battle with his UKSimRacing teammate Cy Anthony, where Anthony led for the majority of the race, but a small error at Forest Elbow saw Nathan Anstis take the lead and take his 1st win of the season for it, as both drivers were chasing the 1st win, but only one could have it. Meanwhile, in the Premier class, what we got to see was Samuel Clark withstand the pressure of a very quick Ricardo Luis Pereira, who in the end goaded himself into an error at turn number 1 with only a couple of laps to go. And in the Evo class, arguably it was the drive of the season for Thomas Weston, who then put together a monstrous pole lap for 6th overall, and then brought home his 3rd win of the season with a very well-tempered drive, where he listened to the angel on his shoulder rather than the devil on the other one. But here today on the 30th of November at Watkins Glen International, will there be the devil in the detail for Thomas Weston, indeed many of our drivers, and who have an angelic conclusion to their season? Well, we're about to see. And in terms of those standings then, as we make our way into this round, let's talk about the bigger picture when it comes to the championships. And starting with the Elite Drivers' Championship standings. And after 9 rounds, here we can see Richard Simnor lead to DCW Racing with 4 wins to the 3 of Joe Nathan, with the Rage Against the Game esports driver only 58 points behind. It's a big gap, and it does make the Briton the favourite. However, the American driver is not going to give up. In the fight for 3rd, well, there's no real fight now, because the Dane of Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars, he sealed the deal there, and he can't take 2nd or 1st, nor can he lose the lead in the fight for 3rd to Javi Sierra, who right now is trying to hold on to 4th, ahead of Ryan Davies by 22 points, after a non-finish in Australia really scuppered his opportunity to put the challenge to bed. Ryan Davies is on the grid today. Well, he could have an opportunity to try and sneak into 4th. If not, then we'll see Ashley Koopman continue to move forward after a 2nd place finish last time out. Despite qualifying on pole, in the end, Richard Simnor got the job done on strategy and leaped him in the pit lane. Whereas Koopman would have been only adding himself to become the 4th winner of the series in the elite class, but it wasn't quite to be. The privateer then gave way to Sean Connor in the championship standings for the Connor Bros driver. Another 4th place finish there, now on 284 points, ahead of Andy Jones for DCW Racing, with the Welshman there being followed up by Helder Gonzalez for Tractix Racing and Raz Harper for DDK Racing Team. And that is your elite top 10, with the top 12 being completed by Venari Racing's pair of Philip Schwerker and Ulrich Scholl, who were deeply missed, of course, after their impressive season opening performances. Coming to the pro class, meanwhile, and here we can see in pro, it's Mikey Story that leads the way. However, the gap is only 26 points. Now, drop scores have been accounted for. There are 2 drop scores in the season, so therefore the mathematics is not quite straightforward in terms of it just requires one driver to beat the other. The drop scores will play a big factor in this, and right now, when you look at Mikey's Story for Dexterous Motorsports, you've got to imagine he has the upper hand, because his drop scores on the 8th and the 9th, well, they are much bigger improvement margins he can work to versus Krista Halsoy's 2 6th place finishes there. And right now, the Norwegian driver is going to need a win, and he's going to need Story to drop some major points here today if he wants to steal it away. Christian Maltrek wasn't on the grid last time out, and therefore the Miracle MA70 esports driver back on the grid today. Most likely he's still within the hunt of this. However, he's the outsider at this point. And one would imagine that therefore, if yet to score a 1st win, he'll be targeting the 1st win and then hoping Lady Luck does the rest for him. Nathan Anstis, he's only 10 points behind for UKSimRacing Mansell, and therefore that goes to show you right now we have as much a fight for 3rd as we do for the win, with the UKSR driver then giving away to Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars Blue, the man who once raced for UKSimRacing, then moved to Old Dudes in Cars. There's no bad blood between them, just to move a team, and well, he's looking forward to seeing what he can do, having only had 1 podium this season, and therefore he'd like might to make it another before the season is all over. Cy Anthony as well, he's only visited the podium twice, and each time it was a second place. He is number Mr. P2, and right now on 450 points, he's 56 behind Darren Sharples, but he could still sneak his way into the top 5 and bring home a trophy. Christian Furs of Pandaspit Motorsports, he hasn't been on the grid for the last couple of rounds, and we hope to see him back on the grid today, but what can he do from 7th? Because he's got Stephen Donnelly closing very gradually for JSD Motorsports, and it's then Jack Barker, not on the grid today unfortunately, due to personal scheduling, but he is all well, I can tell you that. I caught up with him earlier this weekend, and the Made for Racing driver is deeply missing being on the grid in his Lamborghini Huracan Evo, but still he's very happy with the performances put together, particularly that 3rd place in round number 3, but we won't see him here today, ahead of Nathan Scott for Empire Motorsport, who completes your top 10. Matt Hoyland and Pete Scotts complete the Pro top 12, and both drivers not on the grid last time out for either Dexterous Motorsports or SAS Racing. We hope to see him on the grid today. In the Premier class, well, here we can see it is Samuel Clark who leads on 730 points to Ricardo Luis Pereira's 676. The Dexterous Motorsports driver right now, in theory, has almost got this all sealed and done. And looking at his consistency, he has yet to finish off the podium, has the Briton, versus the SRI Privateers, the Caribbean driver, who's missed one round in round number 6, and has also had a 7th and a 4th. However, that's not to say it's impossible for Samuel Clark. If he makes a big error today, if he does not finish, then Ricardo Luis Pereira needs a big score. He needs to win effectively, and he might just be able to swing things. Hendrik Zilka, meanwhile, sits in 3rd for Old Dude in Cars Blue, and right now you can imagine that the Swiss driver there, he would love an opportunity to get ahead of the Portuguese driver right at the finish, particularly after having his 4th second place last time out. And it's much a scrap for 2nd as it is a scrap for the championship crown. With Alan Lever not on the grid today, he ends his championship on 538 points, but the UKSimRacing Mansell driver will know that for Joe Sparrow behind him, Sparrow needs to win plus some bonus points if he wants to steal this away. And the JSD Motorsports driver right now, well, he's not the favourite for taking a win here at Watkins Glen, but in that Aston Martin, he may just be able to surprise us all. Luke Sherlock, how about him? Has moved to 6th after a brilliant 4th place finish last time out in Australia, a faultless drive from the Pennzoil Privateer, and therefore we look forward to seeing whether he can make it onto the podium today. He's ahead of Rob Windsor by only 4 points for the UKSimRacing Hill drive, then being followed up by Daniel Pace for Old Duty Cars, and it's Richard Jones for Salon Steady Racing and Austin Graff for Axis Simsport who complete your top 10. James Conley sits in 11th for UKSimRacing Hill, and it's Ross Young who rounds off the top 12 of the Premiers. And then in the Evo class, last but by no means least, Edward Berry. Can he bring home a maiden title? The rookie Evo driver for UKSimRacing Hill. It's not been the easiest ride this season, but he has been the most consistent of them all, and he has an advantage of 40 points coming into tonight. Last time out, it was a 4th place finish, and he'll be grateful for the fact that Simon Hartley could not improve upon a 3rd place finish, and therefore the DWR with SimCoach Setups driver knows he needs to beat Berry quite boisterously today if he wants to swing the pendulum in his favour right at the close. Meanwhile, his teammate Jordan Jones on 582 points. It's now mathematically impossible for him to take the crown. However, he'll do everything he can to support his teammate and look to try and make sure he finishes in 3rd, albeit he's got a problem behind him, and that is the fast-charging former Thomas Weston. Well, the privateer there, after his 3rd win of the season, has got to be believing right now he can surely finish 3rd at the end of the season in the championship. Joel Loudon sits only 10 points behind him for SRI 7 privateer Ryan, and then we do have Richard White outside the top 5, but only by 26 points, but ahead of Joseph Preston with the JST Motorsports drive delivering his season-best performance of a 2nd place in Australia. And the Porsche 992 driver continues to impress, and if he's back on the grid next season, and we'll talk more about that at the end of today's broadcast, you would imagine he could be a favourite for an Evo crown. Darren Giacovelli sits in 8th ahead of brother Daryl, and then we have your top 10 completed by Max Galgay for Split Track Esports, with Alex Brown, that early retirement in Australia, really a disappointed end to the day at a circuit he absolutely loves. The Sun Steady Racing driver there giving way to Paul Maffey, a further 30 points behind, with the Phoenix Racing driver there completing your Evo standings. As for the Teams Championship, well, a huge congratulations to Dexterous Motorsports, who have wrapped things up with a round to spare after a great set of points last time out, and now the big question mark is who is going to finish 2nd? UKSimRacing Mansell, they are the favourites at this point, but they are only 38 points ahead of DWR with SimCoach Setups, and then it's a further, if my maths is correct, 48 points to Old Dudes in Cars Blue, and then it is another, what is 56 points to UKSimRacing Hill. All 4 of these teams are eligible to take 2nd place, but UKSimRacing Mansell are the favourites, and their sister team Hill would like to finish 3rd right behind them to make it a double podium. But for the 1,126 points of Hill, you then come to the 1,018 points of JST Motorsports, and right now the Joe Sparrow-led team, they've got to focus on holding on to 6th, with DCW Racing only 4 points behind, and there's Old Dudes in Cars, the best part of 120 points adrift from them, and they're fending off the charges of Tractix Racing and SRI Privateers of the Caribbean. And that's how your top 10 of the teams stand. But remember, it's only the top 5 teams drivers who'll be taking home those absolutely brilliant and coveted trophies. So that's where we stand then coming into this round. As for our circuit, well, of course, it is the boot layout of the Watkins Glen International Course, located near the village of Diggs, just south of the village of Watkins Glen, which the circuit takes its name from, in Schuyler County of the US state of New York. This circuit is absolutely iconic, and its layout here absolutely brought to life through the wonderful iRacing simulator and the track map provided by the simulator. A big thank you to iRacing. 11 corners, many of them household names in the States and further abroad, where it be the S's at turns 2, 3 and 4, 90 right at turn number 1, or the run of toe through to hill at turns 7 and 8. There's something for everybody here, and the main theme of this circuit is momentum. There's a lot of camber on these corners, as well as quite a bit of off camber at certain points, such as the run through shoot corner at turn number 6, and it's finding the balance between attacking the corners and keeping your foot slightly off the throttle. Get it right, and you may just come away victorious. Get it wrong, and you'll be vulnerable on the straights. A quick reminder of the rules before we do go to qualifying, which has just got underway. This is an open setup series with fuel loads restricted to 60% for all races. Qualifying wise, a closed qualifying format is being used, with drivers having 4 flying laps available plus their out lap. As for the race, it commences via a double foul rolling start, as it's a tradition of the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship. There is 1 mandatory pit stop for fuel. Tyre change is entirely optional, with each driver having 1 fast repair available should they need it. We may also see drivers come into the pits if they pick up a drive-through penalty for 20 or more instant points. Meanwhile, all race stewarding shall be conducted post-race, meaning any champion announcements will be provisional until the stewards have done their final verdicts. But that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're all here for the racing. And well, good news, ladies and gentlemen, we are into qualifying, as our drivers come towards the end of their out laps, and they're already on to their initial flying laps here. And well, it's great to be able to catch a qualifying session, and we can have all the tension here. You can cut it with a knife, as we see one of our many drivers here, Luke Sherlock, making his way around for his first flying lap to get underway. We will get on board with one of our drivers deeper into this qualifying session. Again, the fact these GT3 machines, they do need the out lap plus the initial banker lap, if you will, to get the tyres up to true temperature, and with it the brakes. But what is required to deliver a good qualifying lap here at the Watkins Glen circuit? Well, it's all about commitment. That is the thing with Watkins Glen. This is a circuit which does encourage high to medium downforce on a car, particularly when it's a GT3, because whilst you do have significant numbers of straights, the whole idea is you make up your speed through the corners, such as here at Toe Bend, which Richard White has given us a demonstration of how to do it exactly right. As he makes his way out in his Ferrari 296, the idea is with the more green wing you have on the car, therefore you can carry more speed into, through and out of the corner, but you've got to have the confidence to be able to return to full throttle as soon as possible. If you dare, you take a little bit of rear wing off the car, and what you do is you increase your top speed on the straights, particularly the run out of the S's in towards the bus stop chicane, and also the run out of toe towards heel corner and the run down the start finish straight. But it is worth margins. There is a very fine line between the amount of rear wing you run and how much you shed off, and how you change the setup of the car to compensate, because all the speed and time is made in the corners, and then the adjustments for the straight add a couple of hundredths onto your potential lap time. But those first lap times now starting to come in from all of our drivers here, and indeed Richard Simnor has set the benchmark at a 1 minute 42.514, as we see him roar his way past the static camera there at turn number 4, and as he does in the Ford Mustang GT3, a very popular car this season, and it has proven to be one of the favourites out there. But right now, can Simnor put together an absolutely brilliant package? We will see what he can do. But as he comes on around, well, making his way down through the outer loop corner, we do look further afield. And who else right now is out there trying to deliver a good lap? We also do have out there Joel Loudon, as he's made, of course, the switch from the Aston Martin earlier in the season to the Ford Mustang, saying that didn't quite work out initially when he made the switch, but over time that switch has actually favoured him a bit, and well, he does seem to be quite happy right now with regards to the fact that he's in a Ford Mustang that is definitely responding to his input. The Aston Martin, to be fair, did him good, but I think he wanted a bit more out of the car in terms of its straight line speed performance, and it does seem to suit him more, this Ford Mustang. The Aston Martin, you do have to drive very aggressively through the corners to maintain the speed, and also you do have to keep it towards the higher RPM band. We talked about this several times this season, in the fact that it is a car that is very reliant on the driver keeping the revs high because of its turbo lag, whereas this Ford Mustang is an naturally aspirated 5-litre V8, and well, therefore you don't exactly have the lag. The only problem you do have is the fact that until you stay in about the 3000 RPM band, you are going to have a little lack of power. That's what a turbo normally does. It assists the car in being able to deliver power further down in the RPM range. As Loudon makes his way through the final corner, when he comes to the end of his second flying lap, he's currently the full fastest of your AM drivers, 20th overall. And as he moves forward. Well, Darren Sharples is looking very good at the top, and the 4th place driver overall. What's more important to him is the fact he's your provisional pole sitter in Pro with a 42.83 there, and Sharples right now looking very quick in a Mercedes that is no slouch when it comes to Watkins Glen, to be fair. The Ford Mustang is the fastest car in the straight for this season based on the balance of performance. The Mercedes is not too far behind. Indeed, you could say it's a German Mustang in a way. However, that'd be a little bit rude with regards to the German power plants. Oh my good lord, he hops his way over the curbs there. The recently revamped curbs, of course, of the bus stop chicane, and Sharp was getting away with that just about, but that was into the stratosphere for a brief moment, and I think that will have definitely made his heart jump out of his chest. But meanwhile, we look down to 21st, and look at that in the timing tower. We've got all of your Evo drivers practically together, excluding Luke Sherlock and James Conley being the interlopers there. But right now, championship leader Edward Berry is slightly faster than Thomas Weston, but it is only by minor margins. It is very close between them, no doubt about it, as he roars his way on through. But hold up a second, we're missing a Corvette here. We're looking at a BMW. That is Robin Pownier. The Corvette has gone away today for Sim Coach, and Pownier has decided to swap to the BMW for this season finale. And I must admit, well, it's up to the driver at the end of the day. They do get one free car change over the course of the season, but I'm a little bit gutted not to be seeing or hearing the sound of a General Motors 6.2 litre V8 running its way around. And Robin Pownier definitely has been a driver all season, who's given the Corvette everything he can. But he's decided to switch to the BMW because it does suit the circuit a little bit more, and that's the purpose of the car change there. You are allowed to make the switch in case you've picked the wrong car going into the season. Alternatively, you've identified midway through the season that you do have a better car to meet the circuit. Although most drivers have stuck with the cars for the most part and have normally picked their car based on what they feel comfortable with and what seems to go with the flow of the entire calendar. As Pownier across the timeline, he stays in 20th at the moment, but he does find a bit more time out there. But with that, we find a bit of time to get an on-board lap with one of our drivers, and we jump on board with Dexterous Motorsports' Samuel Clark as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Watkins Glen International Circuit. So making his way down, I can see some Samuel Clark fans there in the YouTube chat as he heads into 90 right, braking there at the 300-yard board, down to 3rd gear, stamp the throttle back in immediately. As long as he keeps 2 wheels on that exit curve, he's within track limit. Now all the way out through the SC goes. Flat out here to keeping it nice and tight to the apex curves and straight line in between turns 2 and 3. He'll do the same here from 3 to 4, and it's all about now just keeping yourself committed and having a bit of a breather. Upwards of 160 miles an hour ago, and getting ready for the bus stop chicane. He'll look to his left, or his brake mark. It will be at the 300-yard board, dabs the brakes, drops 2 gears, and now makes his way through the chicane. Does he drop to 3rd midway through? No, he doesn't. He keeps a higher gear there to stabilise the car, and now through outer loop he goes. Still holding 4th intriguingly there, Clark. I think he feels more confident, and he's allowed to run out wide there. The NASCAR racing line is now valid for GT3 Racing, and as he comes down into inner loop, down through turn number 6 he goes. Lovely driving there from Samuel Clark, and now in towards toe. At this point, it's uphill and heavily cambered, so he'll drop to 3rd gear, he'll hit the apex at 72 miles an hour and immediately feed the throttle back in, and you can see the full commitment from Clark as he makes his way down the back stretch, but as he does so, well, continues to move forward, keeping it all the way to the left-hand side and into hill corner. Braking at the 200-yard board, trail braking the apex into 3rd gear. The track limits have been tightened up on this corner, they can't run out as wide anymore, and now over the crest of turn number 9, a very tricky corner here because you've got a road surface change. There it is. You don't see it very much on camera, but you feel it as a driver as you bump your way over there, and now into turn number 10, using a bit of grass to open up the corner, and he goes through the left, now into the right-hander at turn 11. Here you've got to brake nice and early, drops to 4th gear, and as he does so, gets the power back on, runs it to the wall, makes some contact with the wall to Samuel Clark, and immediately backs off there, pushed a little bit too hard. He was on a personal best, and for Samuel Clark, it's all gone wrong right at the end of the session. But with that, we've still got a few drivers right now cooling things down here with 30 seconds left on the clock. Remember, there's no overtime permitted in qualifying, so they've got to get the laps done within the 10 minutes. Joseph Preston's on a final flying lap here. He will get this done. Has Preston done anything better here? Because he's struggling right now in qualifying, it would seem, for JST Motorsports. And indeed, currently 8th in Evo and 32nd overall. Heads towards the line in a car that definitely has been the fastest at these more momentum-based circuits. But it is a quick cornering car, and Preston in the end does not improve. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all the valid laps you're going to see. Because Luke Sherlock right now is not going to have enough time to get to the finish line. And so, therefore, that is qualifying complete. It's time to head to the grid for our final race of the season. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we head the way to the grid for the final time this season, and this is how they line up for round 10 of 10 of season 16 of the UK SimRacing GT3 Championship, hosted by SimRacing International on iRacing. Richard Simnor has taken pole position overall and in Elite for DCW Racing. And well, that's a good start to the day for the championship leader in Elite, ahead of Raz Harper for DDK Racing Team, who once again puts together an absolutely brilliant package in qualifying to move himself onto that front row. Sean Connor lines up just behind there, while the home heroes for Connor Bros starts third, ahead of Chris de Halzoy, who out of nowhere in his Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo has put himself on pro pole position, full place overall. Well done to Norwegian driver. That's exactly what the doctors ordered to start off this day if he wants to take the pro crown. Samuel Clark starts this one in 5th. The Premier Championship leader is your Premier pole sitter for Dexterous Motorsports, head of Ryan Davies for Empire Motorsport, and then it will be the 3rd place man in the Premier Championship, Hendrik Zilka, who starts a 2nd in Premier, 7th overall for Old Dudes in Cars Blue with an impressive lap, only a 10th behind Clark. Alongside him on row 4 will be Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars Blue, and lightning fast Daz, as he's known amongst the team. Well, he's definitely qualified well, but can he find a way to challenge Halzoy? We then have Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars, while Sharples' teammates and the sister team start in 9th. Head of Thomas Weston, who once again and takes Evo pole position, 10th place this time, but a very impressive lap when you consider the next Evo driver is down in 24th. But who is it? We'll come back to them shortly. Behind them on row number 6, it is Wayne Douglas who's best of the rest, the privateer ahead of Matt Hoyland for Dexterous Motorsports, with Cy Anthony starting the day 13th for UK SimRacing Price with a decent qualifying performance. And then we do see Joe Sparrow for JST Motorsports puts himself 4th in Premier, 14th overall, one of his best qualifying performances of the season relative to his peers, and I think he'll be quite happy with that. On row number 8, Mikey Story, 15th for Dexterous Motorsports. Well, it's not the qualifying session he wanted, however, it's not awful, given the fact if he finished 5th, Halzoy took the win, it would still be Mikey Story's championship at the moment, but that does make him a little bit vulnerable. And alongside him will be the man who started on pole in Australia, but starting in 16th today is Ashley Koopman for Relentless Racing. Javi Sierra lines up just behind his fellow elite driver, but ahead of Christian Maltrek, who begins the day 18th for Miracle MA70 Esports. And then we do have Ricardo Luis Pereira for SRI Pro Tiers of the Caribbean, who struggled in qualifying. He starts 19th, ahead of Nathan Anstis for UKSimRacing Mansell. We then do have outside the top 20, Robin Powner, 21st in the SimCoach BMW. The smiling Swede then being joined by Daniel Pays on the 11th row of the grid for Old Dudes in Cars, with then Shane Connor starting 23rd for Connor Bros, ahead of Jordan Jones, the 2nd of your Evo drivers, and he's got a long line of Evo cars behind him with the DWR SimCoach Setups driver, followed by his teammate Cy Hartley and Richard White for UKSimRacing Mansell, who starts in 26th place. And then do have Edward Berry, 27th on the grid for UKSimRacing Hill, ahead of teammate James Connolly. That's a bit of a twist. However, you can understand if Connolly's going to do everything he can to support his teammate Berry as they get ready to go racing. And then do have Luke Sherlock starting 29th, ahead of Joel Loudon for SRI Same Priority of Ryan, who completes your top 30. And outside the top 30, there's still more to come. It's such a packed grid here today. We do have Darian Giacovelli starting 31st, ahead of Joseph Preston for JST Motorsports, with the two separated by a 1,000th there. And there was only a further 400 to Alex Brown for Slow and Steady Racing, ahead of Daryl Giacovelli, who starts 34th on the grid. And then last but not least, with no valid qualifying lap, but he has made it onto the grid, so therefore it's just not a happy qualifying session, is the Scotsman of Paul Baffy for Phoenix Racing, who completes this 35-car starting order. So that's how they all line up, ladies and gentlemen, for this season finale. What a grid we have, and indeed the fact we've got so many drivers here today is absolutely wonderful to see as they all gradually make the way down. It's a long formation lap here. Indeed, it does feel as though time takes a very long time to pass when you're only going around at the best part of 50 miles an hour behind that safety car. But as they all queue up behind it, well, all the bobbing and weaving will be used as much as possible by the drivers to get some tyre temperature and also to get some brake temperature, but they won't have long now before they do go green flag racing. And for Richard Simnor, he knows with Joe Nathan not on the grid, intriguingly enough, that all he's got to do is get this home and not be involved in any instance, and he will take home that Elite Championship crown. But Raz Harper may have other ideas here for DDK Racing Team, and I must admit, I'm a little bit sad not to see Joe Nathan on the grid, but I hope Joe's doing okay. I may have missed it, to be fair, if he did announce it to the community before we went racing today. But indeed, Joe has definitely been an absolute brilliant star this season in keeping the fight with Richard Simnor, and nobody will forget his victory at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, where he used strategy to leapfrog Simnor and drove a perfect race to do so. But as all the drivers now get ready to go, only 2 corners, plus a short run to the green flag line. We do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, including Alan Lever, or Budget Racing Noob, who's got all the racing up on the wall today, and I do believe he's on holiday and having a good old time. And we also do say hello there to Nathan Anstis and also to Mac Attack and Izzy G, both Mac Attack and Izzy G cheering on Samuel Clark, who wants to become Premier Champion, and right now he's on course to do so. But the safety car peels away, ladies and gentlemen, and for the final time this season, it's to Richard Simnor to take us to green flag racing in round 10 of 10 of season 16 of the UK SimRacing GT3 Championship here at Watkins Glen. And as quick as that, it's lights and away we go. Richard Simnor and Raz Harper practically dead even as they roar their way away. Down towards turn 1, the field fans out. BMW to the inside wall there. That's Mikey Story looking for a move. But in towards the opening corner, 90 right. It gets very tight here. But everyone right now being sensible. Car around. That's a Ferrari going around. That's Thomas Weston. Weston, the Evo leader, rolls backwards. The field. Oh, goodness me. 2 cars into Weston there. 2 of the Ferraris, I believe. And Weston's race has gone wrong. The car into the barrier. That's Raz Harper getting it wrong. But thankfully, his car's not rolled back into the middle of the road. And the whole field does carry on. But we've lost a few drivers right at the start as they make the way up towards what will be the last stop chicane for the first time. There's drama. Further down, there's even more drama. Who on earth's that going to? That's Sparrow. Sparrow into the wall. He's been turned. And as he comes back on, somehow they all avoid the way of Justin Motorsports Aston Martin. He gets it back together just in the nick of time. But my good lord, normally at Watkins Glen, somebody gets it wrong between turns 1 and 5. That's almost the whole field wiped out. But not so here. And that's credit to all the drivers involved. Also a bit of lady luck, to be fair. But everyone on their best behaviour, and it shows as Simon Hartley now takes the lead in the Evo class as a result. There's more drama. That's Matt Hoyland in the middle of the road. He toes out the way immediately as everyone takes it nice and easy through there. So everyone are having their best dinner dresses on, and as they roar the way into the braking zone here in towards toe corner, that's 3 wide, went from 4 to 3 to 2 wide, and that's going to be Shane Connor taking a big excursion, running deep there for Connor Bros. But I think there are a lot of enthusiasm, but not the brakes to back it up. But he's got damage on the front of the car, so I wouldn't be surprised if something's broken on that car, and therefore he's just trying to nurse it to the pit lane. Bit of fighting behind us. That's going to be Javi Sierra trying to take a place back from Richard White. So White now your Evo leader ahead of Simon Hartley. I think he made that move into toe bend, and we didn't quite catch that on camera, but goodness me, what a shake-up it's been. And we have got several drivers in the pits all towed, and therefore trying to do repair work as Shane Connor lifts off immediately, lets them go. But Darian Giacovelli here trying to fight, as is James Connolly and Joseph Preston. And as they all come into the braking zone, well, that's going to be Giacovelli on the inside of Connolly as Alex Brown escorts himself sideways there at turn number 10. I think he did that with his own volition. We didn't quite see what started it. We saw the outcome, and Preston's into the barrier at the final quarter. So with the Jazz Team Motorsports team, that's even more heartbreak here right at the start as Shane Connor's into the pits. But after 1 lap of racing, we've still got plenty more to come. I can assure you of that. Richard Simnor leads elite and overall ahead of Sean Connor, who sits in second. Brilliant start for Sean Connor behind him. Chris Alzoy has moved up to third. He's your pro leader ahead of Ryan Davies, with Samuel Clark, their Premier leader, in fifth. Darren Sharple sits sixth ahead of Casper Brotner. Then we have Cy Anthony, Hendrik Zilka, and Wayne Douglas completing your top 10. And Wayne Douglas right now has literally got a hungry pack of wolves behind him. Sorry, did I say wolves? It's cars behind, and Mikey Story's leading that pack. Ricardo Luis Pereira right behind him. Both these drivers fourth in their respective classes. The pro driver ahead of the Premier driver, but both right now knowing there's work to do if they want to give themselves more confidence in their championship charges. As Douglas makes a mistake there, going through in a loop, and as they make the way towards toe corner, Story had to back off. Luis Pereira on the inside. I don't know what Story can do here. He's going to try and go around the outside to defend it. I think it's going to be for naught as they rub a little bit of paint, and as they head over the crest. Well, here we can see Joe Sparrow right now, who wants to get ahead of Luis Pereira. He wants to try and dethrone Alan Lever in the championship from that fourth place, but to do so he's got to win. They're getting all very nip and tuck here right now. It really is end of season vibes as they make the way out of hill, and up the hill they go. But right now, no movement from any of these drivers, but they're all really breathing each other's necks. You can understand for Sparrow, given the misfortune he's had and the bad luck this season. Right now he wants to end it on a high, and he's trying to attack early, but that may come back to bite him a little bit later on when we come to figures such as tyre life and also just driver stamina. But as he heads towards another lap, we look back to Richard White, your Evo leader right now, with Simon Hartley following him. And remember, for Hartley, he needs to win this race. Edward Berry is full place right now, Mr. Strawberry, as he's known amongst his teammates. A little strawberry on the back of the car, I believe previously designed by teammate Nathan Anstis there. And right now I can tell there's an absolutely brilliant gif of a pair of sunglasses being put down over the front of that strawberry, because Edward Berry is a cool dude, as I've been informed. But right now he's got to be as cool as a cucumber here, and no, all he needs to do is bring the car home and make sure that he doesn't stay too far away from Simon Hartley, because full place right now, mathematically we believe, would be enough for him to seal the deal and take the Evo Championship. But don't take my word for it, ladies and gentlemen. I have got my mathematical abacus by the side of me, but it's not always 100% accurate, as meanwhile, that's not an accurate telling of the bus stop chicane there for Casper Brotner, who's had a big moment, and I think he's hit crunch time at some point through there, and he's going to lose the place to Robin Powney, who right now is picking them up left, right and centre by just avoiding the chaos and carnage. But we're going to get a replay of what exactly happened at the start very shortly, and indeed we've got quite a few stories to try and unpick, as that is going to be Casper limping around here, and Christian Maltrek, he's going to try and look for a move around the outside. Nathan Anstis has just cleared Brotner, so understandably Maltrek wants to also do the same, and he's going to do so there around the outside. But from that to a battle to the inside, Wayne Douglas versus Joe Sparrow, and as they come into the braking zone, Luis Perez already gotten through. Douglas right now is falling down the order like a stone. I think there might be some damages on Douglas's car, to be fair. That Mercedes right now does not look comfortable into the braking zone. Sparrow immediately dives up the inside there, and right now the Jersey Motorsports driver is not playing around whatsoever. That is a serious face there, and well, he's going to make his way on past what is the car of Jordan Jones that goes a lap down. The Evo driver there was caught up in the first lap drama, unfortunately. We would love to have seen Jones right up there, but then again, you never know what can happen until the very finish of the race, and indeed that's one of the things in motorsport. Anything could happen, and it normally does. But right now, there's definitely a few drivers out there who I think will be hoping for other things to happen, as that is going to be Luis Pereira all over the back of Zilka. They both tuck up the inside of lap down Thomas Weston. And indeed right now, Hendrik Zilke's under a lot of pressure as the Mercedes driver, as this is the second place in Premier, and the gloves are continuing to come off here. Luis Pereira right now is on a charge. Sparrow's right behind him. I think both drivers here are very eager to score as big as possible, but the championship leader, Samuel Clark, he's letting Darren Sharples go just in front of him, but back behind, there's Zilke and Luis Pereira, and Luis Pereira up the inside. Hendrik Zilke does not fight it too hard, but many of you will remember Zilke's one and only win this season came through strategy and being the smartest driver on the field that day. So therefore, right now, I think the old dudes in cars driver is trying to do the same again, which is just simply don't fight, protect the car, and you'll have a better car towards the end of the race. But here we see Sparrow looking up the inside. He's going to go for it here. Silke goes a little bit deep. Too wide on exit. He's going to have the inside now in towards toe bend. But Sparrow right now says, well, I'm going to do it one way or the other. And Zilke's not going to oblige. He's going to stay nice and tight here. That's going to cause Sparrow to go out nice and deep. So this means both drivers now are going to continue to fight. It's going to be a drag race here. Both Mercedes-powered engines, albeit Sparrow does have a turbo versus the naturally aspirated Mercedes on the left of the picture. And, well, it does seem so Zilke's still there. He refuses to budge, but Sparrow's got the commitment. He's going to go all the way around the outside, keep it just about on the road. And Joe Sparrow does move up into third in the Premier class, as now Mikey Story, he tucks in behind, passing Wayne Douglas there coming through what was Hill Corner. And Story up to 11th place here, but 9, his next target is Cy Anthony all the way in 7th in terms of pro places. Goodness me, I think we can breathe for a brief moment with all the chaos that's happened at the start of the race. To be fair, it's not all bad chaos, as meanwhile there's a change for third in the Evo class as Edward Berry making his way past Darren Giacovelli, or is it? As Giacovelli now is going to fight him into turn number 10. Too wide they enter in the pair of McLarens. Berry in the green and black UKSimRacing machine. Meanwhile, Giacovelli in the much more multicoloured light blue into purple and black car, as Alex Brown now gets on the back of the pair of them, and we jump on board with Brown. So a slow and steady racing driver right now looking to the inside here. Can he look for a move? He's thinking about it, but he's got to be careful on the brakes. This BMW, they're not the strongest. It's got one of the weaker ABS systems out there, whereby it does lean very heavily into electronics. And Brown, in the end, as much as he wanted, he had to brake quite early there, knowing that Giacovelli was never going to give it up, and that McLaren's got a lot more rotation on the natural racing line. So Brown, they're trying to go Giacovelli into a mistake, but it didn't quite work out. The one advantage he does have in this BMW, however, is a lot more straight line speed in the top end, and that's going to come alive now as they make their way into the bus stop chicane. As meanwhile, just up ahead, there has been some drive of Hendrik Zilke from what I'm hearing. I believe Zilke's been caught in an instant going on through what was the run of Outer Loop. We're going to come to that very shortly with a replay. In fact, we've got a lot to uncover with replays, but right now we stay transfixed here to the fight for third place in the Evo class, and it's Alex Brown, you're riding on board with the 97 Evo driver, who is still looking to try and make his way from 5th to 3rd, as that's Hendrik Zilke on the left of your picture, wounded card there, and well, he's backing off entirely. So whatever's happened, it's been a big shunt, and well, he's still able to keep racing, but I'd imagine that's going to be a trip to the pits before long. As Brown comes out of tow, you can see how much confidence Brown's got in the car. He's really developed well this season, and keeping in mind that Brown joined the grid the best part of what was, if my memory serves me correctly, 2 seasons ago. Looks for a potential move, doesn't quite have it happen, and in fact it'll be a season ago, I do apologise, they joined in the multi-class championship, then was on the grid in season 15 and was a complete rookie to league race in that point in time, and well, he's definitely found his feet, and he has been supported not just by slow and steady racing, but a number of drives up and down the UKSimRacing community have taken a lot of time with Alex Brown to really help him build his confidence and feel happy on the grid, and that happiness is shown as he gets stuck in week after week. Speaking of that, Giacovelli looking for a move on Berry, and Brown sees there's blood in the water, and like a shark he's going to go to it. The inside he goes here. There's going to be a golden opportunity to turn 1, and if he can get this done, he'll have a long run up towards the bus stop chicane. So there he gets Giacovelli to go a little bit deep, and now as they make their way out the corner, he's going to look for another opportunity as we ride on board again. But as Brown making his way up the hill, he's close. Can he get even closer? The answer is yes. Little by little, millimetre by millimetre, Giacomelli goes defensive here as they come in towards the run of the S's, and now onto the stretch, but before the bus stop chicane, Giacomelli's got the inside line. Brown's now going to commit all the way around the outside here to get this done. It's going to be right into left and left into right. Too wide into, but Brown misses breaking point and straight lines it onto the grass, and Brown there does the right thing, which is just simply avoid hitting the curb, as otherwise the car would have been ejected off the road. And well, Brown there, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of confidence, but unfortunately couldn't quite get it done, and rewards himself with a slowdown for good measure as he makes his way down into the braking zone here and tries to burn it as quickly as he can before it gets converted into a drive-through penalty. But meanwhile, we look back in time now, ladies and gents, with the battling calming down. We have an opportunity to take a look at some replays from the opening 10 minutes of racing. Now we begin with the race start, and the main focus driver we want to look at is Thomas Weston when we did go green flag racing, because it all went wrong for Weston before it went right. But what exactly went wrong is the question we need an answer to. So they went racing, and as they did, down towards turn number 1, into that braking zone they came. Thomas Weston right in the midst of it, and you see the Ferrari there, the black and yellow Ferrari, and in the end made his way through the corner and pranged on the rear there by the Vulcan Fasters machine. I think that was Matt Hoyland who made contact with the back of him, and unfortunately for what was Thomas Weston, he had nowhere to go other than the round and then was just a passenger. We then had this happen a little bit later on for Raz Harper. This was up through the S's. What exactly happened to Harper? You can see the back there was Weston. So this was side by side with Connor at the time, and Harper just too much steering lock there through the S's on cold tyres. Oh my good lord, and that explains what happened to Wayne Douglas and why he's been struggling. He did hit Raz Harper's car, but in the end Harper was able to get it stopped. Oh my good lord, who was that taking evasive action? I couldn't quite see, but that was somebody taking a very late dive sideways, and that almost went very wrong. I believe that might have been none other than Edward Berry. Then we had this happen meanwhile down the run towards the bus stop chicane. This was Joe Sparrow versus none other than Ricardo Luis Pera, and in the end the two interdicted to each other, and Sparrow was sent to the wall, but somehow he's in a car that's not really that damaged, and that's why he's been attacking so hard since then. So that explains why he's been all vigored up. And then we had this happen for Joe Loudon at the same time. And oh, this was Loudon in contact there with the McLaren. I'm trying to understand which McLaren that was. In fact, I think that was none other than the McLaren of Edward Berry, unless I'm mistaken. Yes, it was. So Edward Berry being caught up there. He's made his way through. So how that's all turned out. And Berry had to take evasive action, but he'll have a small cloud hanging over him with regards to that instant. When they had this happen to Matt Hoyland only moments later, this was the man who was in contact with Thomas Weston in the first place. We're not saying he caused it. We're not sure if Weston had lost the rear already, but down to the braking zone here. Hoyland just too much speed, and in the end, carrying all that speed to the wall. Oh my good lord, they all drifted on through, and in the end, Hoyland just a passenger in his car and very quickly got himself out of it. Javi Sierra was caught up then, went sliding sideways, and then we had this for Joe Preston. Or Joseph Preston, as he's known in full, into the final two quarters, battling side by side with none other than one of the DWR cars. There was Alex Brown making it sideways of his own volition, and contact there between the cars of what was, I believe, that was none other, excuse me, than the car of Jordan Jones and Joe Preston being caught out there. So two coming together, and that was all the drama on the opening lap. Then we had this on lap number 3 for Casper Brockner as he made his way into the bus stop chicane, too wide with Cy Anstey, and in the end, well, he tried to continue the too wide but bounced over the curb, and in the end the car was incontrollable, and for Casper Brockner there was a trip to the tyre barrier, and Loudon got it wrong only moments later, and well, he was a lap down at that point, but this was Joel Loudon making his way out of the outer loop and in towards the braking zone for none other than inner loop, and in the end went straight on there, too much speed on the outside line and escorted himself to the barrier. And then we had this for Daryl Giacomelli on lap number 3. This was Giacomelli all by the lonesome. He comes back to life, and as he does so there in the Porsche 992, a lot of apex curb and the car going sideways, and well, unfortunately his internet connection that's censoring out most of the instant. On lap number 5, this was Hendrik Zilka having to go very wrong. In fact, that was the aftermath to the barrier. What actually happened to Hendrik Zilka in the first place? Here's a replay that may explain it. This was Zilka making his way through the bus stop chicane, and as he exited it, where exactly did it go wrong? Oh, a bit of contact there with Mikey Story by looks things. That escorted Zilka to the barrier, and well, in the end he slid along it. An absolutely nasty burn there for Hendrik Zilka, and that explains it all. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your live racing very shortly, I do believe. In fact, just bear with us a brief moment. Indeed, we come back to it now. And well, what a sensational run of moments there, no doubt about it. Absolute chaos at certain points, and at other moments you got to feel for several drivers. I think there was a bit of heartbreak as well, but now as they get it all back together, there's more to come, no doubt about it, as we are almost 15 minutes into the 4-hour distance. And Samuel Clark here on a mission right now, and we do see Cy Anthony right behind him. But keep in mind, the Premier Leader, he doesn't need to beat Cy Anthony to become champion. All he needs to do is hold on to the Premier Lead, and that's why he's going to go deep there at turn number 4, and we'll turn number 5, and make sure he does not scupper his opportunity. And Clark has proven to be the faster of the Premier and Pro drivers. So right now, I think that confidence there for Samuel Clark is definitely coming alive. As we do say hello there to Lagob Fett, and I believe that might be Robin Pownier there, who right now saying hello from the pit lane. The car unfortunately had some major damage from earlier on, and well, sorry to hear that, good sir, but Robin, very happy to have you saying hello and tuning in at the same time. If you can't go racing, the fact you're with us in spirit right now is all the more valuable. As we do see their hold up, that's the front end completely missing off of McLaren. That's Simon Hartley, who's got no front bumper anymore. And Hartley is leading in the Evo class. I can't believe it, the man. He's found his way past Richard White, but at what cost does it come to is the big question. I think White's had a bit of an error recently that's lost in the plays, but Simon Hartley is missing a front bumper, and, well, we haven't got any replay footage as to why he's lost that front bumper, but we have got footage as to how he made the move for the lead of the class, and here it is. So this was coming on through the bus stop chicane, and Richard White completely made a ham sandwich of that, and that's how he lost the front bumper. He hit the rear of White. White went wide there, and for Hartley, well, that front bumper came off as if it was held on with a staple. And as they make the way down in towards turn number 6, right now I think Simon Hartley's not really grateful for the drag reduction he's tried to implement. It's only going to improve the amount of drag that he experiences on the car. And, well, Richard White, meanwhile, tried to regroup and recalculate what exactly happened. But back to all your live racing we are, and we look to Alex Brown, who now is trying to find his way past Edward Berry. And we know Berry's in the car that's got some damage on it, and Brown here right now is trying to add to the damage. Not literally, but he's trying to make sure he gets some points, and Berry's race goes a little bit backwards here. Brown up the inside. Berry doesn't fight it too hard, but I think understandably Edward Berry's focus is going to be on getting the car to the finish, because if he does, keep in mind he has a 40-point advantage. Well, a 4th place to Simon Hartley's win at the moment, it would still be enough if my mental mathematics is correct. But again, all that will be confirmed after the race is complete, ladies and gentlemen. And right now for Alex Brown, well, he's got to keep this up, and if he does, he may be on course for his first podium of the season, and he may be on course for a season best result, and that would be a very happy end to the season for Alex Brown, who so far this season has achieved a couple of top 5s, but he's never been on the podium. He's come close to a podium twice, but each time when he was in a podium position, a late mistake in the race cost him quite dearly, and he's hoping that what is the 4th time of attempting it, he is going to be able to pull it off. But from him, we do come all the way back to the front of the field, and here's Richard Simnor. Right now, a bit lonely at the front of the field for DCW Racing, with a 3.6 second gap over home hero Sean Connor. And Richard Simnor right now doing everything he needs to in order to bring home the elite crown. And Sean Connor, meanwhile, trying to chase him down. I think the problem is he's got the pro leader, Chris Dalzoy. He's just set the fastest lap of everybody in the race, a 43.531. And Halzoy is flying out there right now for Tractix Racing. To be fair, he is aided by the slipstream of the McLaren in front. And therefore you could say that with that he's flying because the McLaren is pulling him along, but still Halzoy's got to be able to match the times of Sean Connor by default in order to be this close, to be able to pump in out the fastest laps of the race, not just in cars, and that's why Chris Dalzoy right now is looking very strong. The only problem is with Mikey Story in 4th place in Pro at the moment, it could be the situation. It may not be enough right to the finish, but the drop scores are going to be a big factor in whether this works out for Halzoy or not, as Story right now definitely has got the more consistent point scores to work from. But meanwhile, we come back to Nathan Anstis, who's got Christian Maltrep for close company. They're going to be fighting over 5th place in Pro here, and they're tucked in behind Ashley Coutland, the Relentless Racing driver, who had an absolutely abysmal qualifying session. And right now the Ford Mustang is trying to hold on here as we look back from the rear of the Relentless Racing 364 Mustang. Coming through toe corner, and you can see the sparks coming from what was the rear left-hand side from the driver's perspective, but the bottom right of your camera. That means there's a grounding out effect occurring with the car there, and well, it's a very low car for a heavily cambered corner. That's not uncommon, but he's going to be careful. That's going to increase friction, and it does mean he will be shaving off a little bit of body panelling as he makes way through, albeit these cars are made to take it on the under trays, but it's definitely not an effect you want, is to have the car scraping on the tarmac in these cambered corners, because that means that you're essentially rubbing car against tarmac and you are losing a bit of speed. Coming through turn 10 in towards 11, Coupland right now. Well, he wants to try and get close to Ryan Davies, the 4th place man overall, but 3rd in elite. He's got a way to go here as Anstis and Maltrek continue to watch on. Across that timeline, 19 minutes complete, plenty more time to go, and no sign of a strategic pit stop as of yet. I suspect we won't be seeing one for quite some time, just for the simple reason nobody really wants to lose track position around here. And whilst overtaking is highly possible at the Watkins Glen International Circuit, the problem is it costs a lot of time, and therefore you want to try and get things done as best as you can on track, rather than having to think about when's the time to pit. But all these drivers right now doing a brilliant job out there, and I think we're due to see even more fighting in due course. In fact, I noticed that actually Coulton's got some damage on the front of the car as he hops his way into the bus stop chicane. Indeed, that's very brave there, almost clipping the inside barrier, and Nathan Anstis, if he was any closer at this point, I think he'd be in the back of that Mustang in his McLaren. That's how hard Anstis is pushing here in the tow. It's not coming to fruition for now, as I think Coulton's just struggling a little bit in the heavy braking zones, particularly when it's the left-hand corner, so he has got damage around the front right tyre. I think that wheel arch has actually receded slightly, and there might be some suspension damage with it. So Anstis here, he's close, but he hasn't got the speed to pass. And Christian Maltrek now finds himself in a bit of a disadvantaged position, which is he wants to get past Anstis, but Anstis is pumping out the laps, and they are both caught up behind Coulton. So if you're Christian Maltrek at this point in your BMW, Miracle MA70 Esports, now you've got you thinking, okay, how do we strategize our way around this? Because if it's not forthcoming, we're just naturally losing time if we think we're the faster driver. And I wonder whether the 217 BMW is going to be one of the very first to come into the pit for a strategic pit stop. And if so, he would come out towards the very back of the field, but it could benefit him in the long run if he thinks he's got the pace in clear air. As they make their way past the wall camera there, goodness me, the speed they passed that camera, almost taking it off its hilt. Well, right now, Maltrek just staying behind, but I wonder how long it'll be before he decides he doesn't want to play the game of follow the leader anymore. From them, we come back to Richard White, as we briefly lose him, and then he rematerialises. He's chased after Simon Hartley, your leader in the Evo class. They're fighting over 18th overall, and well, Hartley right now, despite the front damage to the car, is still making sure Richard White's not able to get any closer. He's keeping her arm's reach, but as they head in towards another run of 90 right, you can see Richard White here. I think he'll fancy the opportunity by being this close just to be able to make something work with strategy. He does have the option, if he can stay close enough, to save a little bit of fuel into the braking zones through lift and coast. But that's what Simon Hartley needs to do now. He's either got to make a decision, which is keep pushing and try to outrun White so he can't do the fuel saving, or he's going to start doing some fuel saving of his own, and therefore he might have to let Richard White get closer, but it will level them out when it comes to the pit stops. Because one of the things about Watkins Glen is it is quite a long pit time around here, and it is also a very slow pit entry. You essentially enter the pit before the final corner's apex, and you have to stay within the pit entry lines. You go outside of those, it will be a penalty for unsafe entry into the pits. So you lose a lot of time in the pits around here, and that's the time they need to think about. But coming back to your Premier leaders, as very happily identified there for Budget Racing Noob, who does say the top 3 Premier drivers coming together. We could get another Sebring. Indeed, many of you will remember at Sebring we did have our Premier Class lead battle go all the way to the wire, and some would argue we should have had a couple more laps from it, albeit we didn't because we ran out of time. But that's one of those things, it was getting so tasty towards the very end, we just wanted a couple more laps to see how it would conclude. Indeed, we could have asked for a few more laps after that even. But Samuel Clark right now, he won't be thinking about laps. All he'll be thinking about is keeping that lead. Ricardo Luis Perez is inching closer and closer. And given that both Luis Perez and also Joe Sparrow are both running Aston Martins for separate teams that have both picked up damage through contact with each other, but certainly Joe Sparrow, I don't know how he did not ping pong off the inside wall, and well, the fact that he kept it together when he had that contact with Luis Perez at the best part of 160 miles an hour, he's been able to pull off some magic in that car, no doubt about it. As hold up, somebody's just done a magic trick. That's Ryan Davies at Empire Motorsport, who's magically reappeared. He's made a complete mess of what is the bus stop chicane there, but somehow I think he's kept it out the wall. As Sparrow here right now says, right, I'm going to get this elite driver out of my way as quickly as possible. And well, absolutely attacking it as we ride aboard with the Aston Martin, but the JST Motorsports driver, in all of his impatience to want to get through, I wonder if in fact he just needs to accept the fact that Ryan Davies is going to get himself back together here, and he needs to work with the Empire Motorsport driver, because in clear air, and presuming that that car is in an okay condition, Davies has been on average a lap a couple of tenths faster than Sparrow. The point being here that if Sparrow works with that Ford Mustang, he may be able to use it to pull him back to the Premier leaders. It's not an easy thing to do, particularly when testosterone and adrenaline are absolutely going rampant through your body, whether it's in a simulated car or a real one, but sometimes you have to put your strategic head back on, and I think we are going to see Sparrow do that very gradually as he makes his way through those corners. But understandably, Sparrow right now is very eager to try and get the job done as much as possible, even if it means running out to those walls, and indeed, he's absolutely on the march. As he does so, well, right now, looking to go hunting after Ryan Davies. It's not going to come forward straight away, but there's plenty more racing where that came from, as they say. And I can understand right now, if for Sparrow, his thought process is going to be just take it one step at a time, regroup, recalculate, and get back on the charge. But as the driver makes his way on through, we do look a little bit further afield. Back to Simon Hartley, who has Richard White for close company. White right there with him as these drivers make the way through the final quarter. So it's definitely getting closer and closer between them as they power their way down towards another lap. Right now, it does seem as though still for what is Richard White, as much as he can close the gap, he can't quite get in a position to be able to land the attack. And I think it is all for him right now about seeing if he can work some strategy into this. Simon Hartley is definitely working as hard as he possibly can to keep that wounded McLaren in the lead of the class. As they roar the way onto this back stretch, we're still getting closer and closer towards pit stop territory here. We're almost at the halfway point of the race. And if I'd imagine that if we haven't seen pit stops and drives, we will see them soon. As Casper Rotner's going to make a move here on Alex Brown. It's BMW on BMW. Elite driver up the inside of Brown. And well, the Evo driver falls backwards into 21st place. But to be fair, he doesn't have to worry about Casper Rotner because now Brotner will go on his merry way and go after White and Hartley. But Brotner's got a long way to go in a car that's already been to the pits once for repair work. It's going to need to come to the pits again for fuel before the end of the race. Otherwise, he's going to be spluttering across that finish line if he can roll to it. But at the front of the field, Richard Simnor sets a new fastest lap of the race, a 42.341. It is 4 tenths faster than what Sean Connor has just done, as Connor sets a personal best of 42.751 and puts himself out quite wide there at 90 right as Krista Houseway stays with him. What's quite noticeable, however, is that Houseway's actually backed off a little bit over the last couple of laps in terms of the gap, and the fastest lap race now is in the hands of Richard Simnor, whereas previously it was with Houseway. And I wonder whether the Tractix Racing team have been on the radio to Houseway and said to him, Krista, you don't need to beat Sean Connor in front, you don't need to push any harder than what you're already doing. You are leading right now, and the thing is, all you've got to do at this point is bring that win home and hope that Mikey Story doesn't get enough points. Understandably for Krista, you can imagine that right now he wants to move further and further forward. He wants to gap the pro drivers as much as possible, so that way he is guaranteed the win if something silly should happen, such as he makes a small error. But I wonder whether he's just been told by the team at this point, you don't need to push, protect the car. You're going to need those tyres later in the race, and we're going to need as many strategic options as possible. And also, a bit of fuel saving at this point will help him nicely in guaranteeing after the pit stops he still maintains his 6+ second gap. But as he comes on down in towards turn number 8 again. All right, now Houseway definitely leading this race well with Darren Sharples. Well, it is one of those situations, the Mercedes driver right now, I think he's feeling to himself that more is still to come. Looks like Ansley there, or Ansley's still on a mission to move forward as much as he possibly can. The top three in pro, they're not really closing to each other, albeit they're not really breaking away from each other. They're all exchanging the lap times. In fact, saying that, taking a look at the laps that we've just seen recently, there is a little bit of a trend happening here. Bear with us, because let's take a look at those lap times between Ansley and Sharples. What you can see is that Slight Ansley right now is actually closing on Darren Sharples a little bit, albeit that last lap, we haven't quite seen the lap times come through. There they are. Sharples was 2 tenths faster, but the net gain has actually been in the favour of Slight Ansley. He has gained by half a second over the last 5 laps. Ansley could be catching up to Sharples before the stint is over, as we do have our first pit stop on the cards. Ricardo Luis Perez breaks the deadlock here. He makes his way on in, and as he does, well, right now that takes him out the running order in his battle with Joe Sparrow. Here is Sparrow, meanwhile, carried on. And I wonder then whether Luis Perez has seen an opportunity and whether this is going to trigger off even more pit stops. He's still being serviced as I look out my content booth window, and that car right now getting all the fuel in. He's just had the fuel gun come out the car, so Luis Perez will make his way back out. And when he does so, where is he going to re-emerge? Well, here comes Alex Brown, yet to pit. So Luis Perez behind him. That is going to put Luis Perez in at 21st place. Edward Berry's into the pit lane. So UKSimRacing Hill have decided to hit their championship leader in the Evo class nice and early. Get him in, and he's going to have plenty of track to work with. Paul Maffey's still out there. He's got Thomas Weston a long way behind him. Remember, Weston is a lap down, but Maffey right now is closing up to none other there than in front of him. What is the car of Darren Giacovelli that's made its way into the pit lane? So Maffey here on the lead lap makes way past Edward Berry, who's still being serviced, and I would imagine that Berry's going to start rolling out of his pit box shortly. Yep, there he goes. A bit of wheel spin, however, and that means he's very eager to get back out there, but make sure you got the limiter on. Don't do anything silly, and Berry will come back out in 5th place in the Evo class, and well, that's going to be good enough right now for him, and it's to Simon Hartley to respond. Meanwhile, looking back to the battle between Simon Hartley and Richard White, they have an interloper. That is Casper Brotner, who's just snuck up the inside of White, who gave him all the space and even more real estate there. I think Richard White opting to let Casper Brotner go and hoping the old dudes in cars BMW could be a bit of a disruptive force to Simon Hartley. Richard White's definitely got his strategic head on here and thinking about the bigger picture rather than the here and now and trying to chase down that McLaren in front of him. He's going to do it through smarts rather than brawn. As it's going to be all about the pit stops even more now. Sparrow's in, so is Ashley Coupland, the elite driver just behind the Premier driver there. Luke Sherlock stays out here, and the Pennzoil machine once again has avoided drama, moves up to 3rd in Premier, but that's on track, not on strategy. We believe on strategy he is 5th in Premier, but even so, it would be another top 5, and he'd be very happy to end the season on 2 top 5s, and it would be a good foundation for season 17 if it continues. There he goes, roaring on past our static camera. And Simon Hartley not too far behind. But as he tries carrying on, in fact, that's not Simon Hartley behind. That is Jordan Jones. Let me correct myself. He's a lap down, 7th place Evo driver. And it's definitely been a bit of a frustrating race for Jones with everything that happened right at the start. But he's still in it to win it. But with those pit stops then, with Casper Brotner as well, passing Simon Hartley. Well, here comes Richard White. White's going to go for it. And so it's worked out in the favour of Richard White here to use Casper Brotner as a little bit of a pace car. And will we ride aboard with the number 27 for UKSimRacing Bansal. He's looking for an opportunity, but is it going to be forthcoming? The answer is no. And White struggling there through the bus stop chicane. Again, dirty air is a big factor around here at Watkins Glen. Richard Simnor's into the pits from the lead as I look out my commentating booth window. So we do have a new leader of the race overall. That's Sean Connor. I think Simnor's decided to come in on the midpoint of the race. He's got such a gap, he can flex his style. And Richard White here is not proving to be too flexible and being able to catch up. And well, Simon Hartley, I think he'd be very grateful for the fact that even with the damage to that McLaren, he's still holding on comfortably. But charging away onwards, we say hello there to Barry Wedman in the YouTube chat, who's cheering on Samuel Clark and says he deserves some glory. So looking forward to see what's going to happen. And well, the question there being asked about Split B for season 11 of the Thursday GT3 series at SimRacing International. I will be in the commentating booth for Split A as of season 11. And indeed, we'll talk more about that a little bit later on in today's broadcast. But as Richard White continues to give chase, it's Simon Hartley right now who is definitely coming into the pits. He ducks into the pit lane there. White get caught out a little bit. I think realised at the last moment what the plan was for Simon Hartley. And Simon Hartley there definitely leaving it to the last moment to come into the pit lane. I think he was any later than that, he would have afforded himself a penalty. But Richard White now has got to pump in a qualifying lap at this point. More pit stops are coming on through. And indeed, as many coming in as they are leaving the pit lane. Mikey Story makes one out. So does Ashley Coulthard. Meanwhile, Darren Sharples on site. Anthony, they've recently had their pit stops. Richard White's coming to the back of this, and this is not good for Richard White because he's got 2 pro drivers in front who are fighting each other. They've both pitted as well, so it's not as though White can expect them to get out of the way. And Sharples right now, who was second comfortably by 2 seconds, he's lost 2 seconds in the pit lane. Simon Hartley is, well, in fact, it's not Simon Hartley, Cy Anthony. Let me get my Simons in the right order. It's Cy Anthony who's on the attack here. And a very good pit stop for the UKSimRacing team has put him right behind an old rival, but he's not able to find a way through. And I think that's a bit of a breather there for Darren Sharples. He'll be grateful for that. But the challenge will be at this point now is can Anthony get close to that Mercedes that once it's up to speed, it may just be able to pull away a little bit. As more pit stops happening now, your top 4 into the pits, Connor, Houseway, Clark and Davies, they are all in. You do have Ricardo Luis Perez. He's come back out ahead of Joe Sparrow and he's actually opened that gap back up to the best part of 3 seconds. But drama, Mikey Story, a black flag. Now, is that for speed in the pit lane or is it for instant points? Either way, Story, the 4th place man and the championship leader in the pro class, well, he's going to have to come into the pits and conduct a drive-through within 3 laps of that being awarded. That's going to put him most certainly behind Nathan Anstis and Christian Baltret. That will put him down to 6th in pro. And well, the only other pro driver here is in the pit lane in the car that's being repaired. It's none other than Matt Hoyland. So right now, well, Mikey Story is going to be 6th, and what can he do from there to try and recover? Because, of course, the man who is leading in Pro is Krista Halsoy, currently in 3rd, and he's the only driver who can take the crown away from Mikey Story, but he needs a complete upset here, and this is how upsets happen. So Story into the pit lane. Let's go pit into the back of the Pro class. What can he work from there? We will see. Sean Conn and Krista Halsoy, they are literally nose to tail once again, with Halsoy having the quicker pit stop by 3/10 of a second, and Sean Conn goes defensive for a little bit, and Halsoy immediately responds by pulling himself back onto the racing line and saying to him, no, I'm not going to attack you, Sean, just hold your line instead. So Halsoy right now playing the bigger picture, and when he gets told over the pit wall that Story's got a drive-through penalty, well, for Mikey Story, he comes back out the pits and he comes out in 16th place overall, I believe, as we in fact catch the camera there. He's got Luke Charlotte for company, and well, these two BMWs, they'll sort each other out quite quickly. But as they do, Richard White's leaving the pit lane. Where is Simon Hartley with the fast repair on the car? The front bumper's been reattached. Well, it's going to be side by side between them, and Richard White loses out. White has lost out massively as a result of finding the traffic of what was Darren Sharples and St. Anthony, and suddenly Richard White, who was over the back of Simon Hartley, now finds himself almost 2 seconds behind. So Simon Hartley retakes the Evo lead. It comes at an important time. Meanwhile, Alex Brown versus Edward Berry. Berry needs this 3rd place. He needs to take it back over Brown to give himself certainty that he'll be your Evo champion. Of Brown right now, he's not in the championship fight, but he's here trying to take his first podium of the season. How easy is he going to make it for Berry? I get the feeling he may not make it easy at all, as we ride on board here with your championship leader right now in the 44, and the UKSimRacing Hill driver knows this is a place he's got to pick off to give himself confidence. As they make the way out of Terminal 5 in towards 6, I think he's got the confidence in spades with regards to each and every other race this season. But the problem is right now, this is a season finale race, and he knows that every moment is about risk versus reward. You can throw this away just as easily as you can take the championship crown. As he makes way through Toe Ben, Brown right now not showing any signs of real major defence. He's just trying to hold his line, but does make an error there. Gets a bit sideways coming through the apex of Toe, and Berry's going to be on the inside here as they make the way in towards Hill Corner. And as he comes onto the brakes, 2 wide they enter, but Brown there trying to outbrake the McLaren, runs deep. That's going to give Berry a better line now up the hill, but Brown's got the traction as they head in towards turn number 9. Berry still trying to fight his way past there, riding the brakes. You could see the brake lights going on and off, flickering there. That's a sign of where he's trying to trail off the brakes as much as possible. And as they come in towards turn number 10, Brown is not going to make this easy. He is resisting, and who can blame him? He wants his first podium of the season, regardless of who he's battling with, so long as he battles them fairly. And as they come out the corner, Berry is made to wait a little bit longer, but on to lap number 21 they go. They've still got 25 minutes in this race remaining. It is going to be absolutely to the wire between these drivers, but we will see what is to come as they make the way through 90 right, and Berry is all over the back of Brown once again. In fact, he's had a much better exit. Brown has struggled up the hill, but Brown does have now the power of that BMW as we look out the rear of the car. The Sunsteady Racing 97 here, just putting itself nice and wide in the middle of the road, and Berry gradually losing straight line speed here for all the slipstream, for all the momentum he's carried. That BMW just has so much more in 6th gear, and more into the bus stop chicane. There'll be no change. They hop their way through. And both drivers here making sure not to risk it, making sure not to try and cut that chicane entry. As whilst you can gain time. You also send the car for all 4 wheels for a very brief moment. This is how it comes back crashing down the suspension. We can suddenly see the car ejected out to the wall. But as we briefly leave them for a moment, we've had a bit of drama out the road. St. Anthony, he's missed a whole front bumper to his car, and the McLaren driver in the 227, I think he's had a bit of a nightmare moment, and right now we'll have to understand what's happened in short order. He comes into the pit lane there, makes a bit of a mistake coming into the pits. I think he'll get away with that just about, with the damage on the car, but definitely that's going to raise some hairs in the UKSimRacing garages. From them, we do look to Sean Cotter and Chris Halsoy. They're still together, still nice and close, and right now Halsoy getting closer and closer with every lap turned. I think Sean Cotter here is just running out of steam at this point. That's not to belittle the elite driver, I just think he's not expecting Chris Halsoy to be this resilient on the back of him, and Halsoy right now definitely a pro driver who's putting on an elite performance here today. But with that, we go back in time to what exactly happened to St. Anthony. It was only a lap ago, and here is exactly what happened on a replay. So this was heading down the back stretch here, and St. Anthony, he made his way into the chicane, and he bounced his way on in, took way too much apex curb, and in the end had no control of the car, and a nasty knock to the barrier there. And for St. Anthony, was able to get turned around quite quickly, and that's a car that definitely is in a state of repair, but I'm reassured that he's going to get that repaired quite soon. But as we do cut back to your live race and we come back to the Berry-Brown battle, that's a third in Evo, or what is for 21st overall. They're still very close together, these two. And Brown, once again, having to rely on the straight line speed of the BMW, but It seems though Berry this time has got much closer to within a tenth there before the braking zone of the chicane. He's not able to quite find it and has to sit behind as they roar the way on down, but in towards that right-hander there of turn number 5. And you can see right now, Berry wants to go for it. He's teasing it out, but he's trying to get Brown to make a mistake. He doesn't want to dive. Brown does go deep there at turn number 6. This is the opportunity for Berry. He's got to believe now that all he's got to do is hold his lines. Brown will be there on the inside. Berry's going to fall backwards here, but he can keep that pressure. He can get Brown to continue to goad himself into a mistake. Around the outside, Berry goes here, and as he does so, he carries all that momentum over the rise, but the problem is that BMW just has so much exit speed, and as they head up towards Hill Bend, or down towards it we should say, two wide, they get very close to each other side by side. You can tell Berry doesn't want to risk it, he doesn't want to make any contact here, and Brown is driving absolutely brilliantly every step of the way. Respected, he is fighting with the potential champion, but respected the fact as well that he wants a third place, he wants his first ever podium. And as they come out of turn number 9 in towards 10, here comes Berry once again, looking up the inside, can't find it, but trying to get Brown to outbreak himself at a corner where he's made mistakes earlier on in the race. Brown there going defensive all the way to 11, then realising he doesn't need to. That's what Berry's relying on. He's trying to get Brown to make a mistake as that's into the wall for Berry. Goodness me, that's a knock. He gets to have it that time, but he can't afford to take that risk. If he hits that wall any harder at an angle, then suddenly that suspension on the left hand side is not going to be pointing straight. The team will be taking a look at the data from the car, trying to understand what exactly has happened with that impact, but right now Edward Berry absolutely driving on the limit here, and you can tell he's driving on the limit because mistakes like that don't happen for the UKSimRacing Hill driver very often, but when they do, that's because he's pushing so hard. Here he comes once again then, within a tenth, he gets closer and closer and closer, but he doesn't look for it. Brown holds the position for now, going through that chicane, and knowing every lap that he stays like this is another lap where he could see that championship lead fall out of his hands. But down through turn number 5, and Brown right now just keeping that BMW nice and wide. It is the widest car on the grid by a couple of millimetres, but into that braking zone for turn number 6. Berry right now, he can see there is the space to dive. He thinks about it, but he knows it's not worth it. He can't risk it. Whereas the championship rival he's up against, Simon Hartley, is still leading in Evo by 3 seconds over Richard White, and White right now is showing no signs of being able to bounce back versus him at this time. We're keeping an eye on it where we can as these two continue to fight hard. It's an absolutely brilliant battle here, one of the finest battles between two drivers who've been stars of the Evo class in their own right. But as they come down through turn number 8, we're going to have to leave them for a brief moment potentially. We'll see whether Berry can make the move here into turn 9. No, he can't, but we will come back to him in due time because we've still got some question marks over what is the battle for the Premier lead. And it is currently Samuel Clark ahead of Louise Pereira and Joe Sparrow right behind. They are closing on each other little by little. Sparrow is 3 seconds off the back of the top two, but Louise Pereira is right there. Samuel Clark is still on course to take the Premier crown. He is championship leader. He's had a podium in every race this season and multiple wins, and right now winning this race would most certainly guarantee it. And the man who's chased him, Ricardo Luis Pereira, is the only one who could potentially dethrone him, but he needs Samuel Clark to essentially have a nightmare race. He needs Clark to essentially retire from this race or finish dead last in what would be the Premier class and have some points deductions for it to go the wrong way. But meanwhile, Alex Brown, we come back to this time. He's even closer, Edward Berry, as they look towards the bus stop chicane. And Berry's here, side by side in the McLaren. He's going to go for it this time. He's got to go for it here. He's never going to get a better chance than this as they come in towards the right-hander. Brown's there, but he goes straight on. Berry gives him the space to breathe, and through the chicane he comes, and Edward Berry finally gets through. He had to spend the best part of 10 laps looking for it, but then Edward Berry moves into third from a very resilient Alex Brown. And Brown's going to try and come back if he can, but I don't think he's going to have enough now. I think Berry's been released onto the world, and his next target 9 seconds up the road is Richard White. But with that, it means that Edward Berry right now thinks fish as they currently stand. We believe he would be your Evo champion, and that's the move he's needed to make. Brown, meanwhile, now has just got to think about following Berry and see whether he can get close, alternatively whether they can pull each other up to Richard White and fight for the second place spot on the podium. But as they continue on, we look to Joe Sparrow, who's got Ashley Coutland behind him, and well, right now he won't want the elite driver fighting him at all when he just wants to chase after the rest of the Premier podium. Sparrow right now definitely finding his race is oscillated back and down like a yo-yo here, and indeed you could say that has been his season in some respects, not to be rude about him, but at some points he's definitely been on a high, and at other points he's been on a low. As meanwhile, Nathan Anstis has just hit a low because he's just had to tow to the pits off camera, and as a release, Christian Maltrek into third in pro. What exactly has happened to Nathan Anstis? We get a quick replay to explain. So this was Anstis only moments ago, making his way in towards the bus stop chicane, and as he went to turn in, he repeated the Cy Anstey moment there, and indeed right now the man he is teammates with and battled hard with last round, he absolutely replicated the mistake of Cy Anstey, which was too much apex curb and too much speed, and the two don't go together, and two wrongs don't make a right, they just make an even worse wrong in a GT3 machine. But as we come back to live racing, we've still got 16 minutes left on the clock. We've still got a final lap as well. It's not over yet, even if the racing seems to be calming down a little bit. And these season finale races always do spread some surprises right towards the end. And with that, and with the misfortune for both Nathan Estes and Cy Anstey, that drive-through penalty for Mikey Story that dropped into 6th in Pro, he's suddenly back into 4th in the class. And Mikey Story right now, we believe, would become your Pro champion, even with Chris Alsoy leading the Pro class in this race and looking on course to potentially take the Pro win here today from a Darren Sharples, who is 10 seconds back down the road for old dudes in cars. But Sharples, to be fair, definitely putting on one of his best performances of the season here today, and it shows in the attitude that he's had since the very start of the race. Having qualified just behind Halsoy on the grid, when he hasn't quite matched Halsoy's pace, what he has definitely done is shown that he has been the second best of the Pros at Watkins Glen, and who can blame him for it as he continues to push on. But as he comes on the round in towards inner loop, we do look back to the Berry-Brown battle, because Edward Berry found his way through, only a lap ago. There's just one problem. Alex Brown is not going away. He's like a bit of chewing gum on your shoe right now. No matter how hard you try to pick it and pull it off, it is staying there right now unless you use a very powerful water spray. And that's not to say we want Alex Brown to go away. He is coming back here at Berry. And if anything, I think Brown's enjoyed being the defender so much that now it's actually given him a little bit of a mental boost to go on the offence. And this is what we like to see from Brown as we ride on board of the slow and steady racing driver who's been in this situation earlier on today when he was 5th, chasing after 3rd in the Evo class, and well, the confidence that he's showing here is definitely a huge boost after the misfortune of Australia last time out. I think Brown's definitely coming to this round thinking, you know what, it's the season finale and I'm not going to let Bathurst upset me. I'm going to give it everything here today, and Brown is doing a really good job, so he's still chasing down Berry as much as he can, and the pressure is now on Edward Berry not to make an error, as we do see Nathan Anstis there and say hello to him in the YouTube chat. It says gutted. We definitely feel for you, Nathan, after that mistake. You were looking very solidly on course for a top 5 and not a podium in the Pro class, and we'll hope all is well otherwise. And indeed, the only accolade you can take is the fact that you've been consistent with Cy Anthony today. The two of you battling hard at Bathurst, and both of you making the exact same mistake at the exact same apex curb in the bus stop chicane. As we also say hello there to BRT Benson, who says that SimCoach logo is nice, and indeed that gives us a bit of encouragement to take a look at a SimCoach car. Albeit we would, but unfortunately the one SimCoach car we had on the grid today, Robin Pownier, has retired after only 6 laps due to a major incident. Otherwise we definitely show you that BMW in full force. But these drivers all right now continuing to push towards that finish line. That finish line is still a bit away, but at the very front is Richard Simnor, who knows with every lap turn and every second that ticks away, that elite crown is coming closer and closer to his very capable hands at ECW Racing. And all we need to do at this point is not make any errors. He is the championship leader coming into this round, and with Joe Nathan not here, he would be the de facto champion by default. But I think he wants to make sure he ends the season on a win. Sean Connor, well, right now, still holding off Krista Halsoy. He's managing to stabilise the gap for Connor Bros, and this will be a season best second place, and arguably his best result of the season, given how close he'll be to Richard Simnor at the finish. Through that left into the right, Krista Halsoy is definitely keeping things nice and tight behind him. The pro leader right now for Tractics Racing, once again showing that it's not about how you start the season, it's about how you end it in terms of how good a chance you can give yourself in trying to take the championship crown. Albeit, he will be aware that Mikey Story in 4th place in pro at the moment, if he's being told on the radio by the team, means he won't be your pro champion, we believe. We'll confirm it after the race is completed, but still, at this point in time, all Halsoy can do is just get the best result he can, and that is a win, and he's definitely going to do that at this rate. Darren Sharples is a bit further back, and this second place definitely seems to be very easily coming into his hands now, with Ryan Davies closing up little by little just behind. And we can see the Empire Motorsport Ford Mustang up into 3rd since his starting position of 4th in class. He's definitely had a bit of a difficult race at the midpoint, but he's finally found himself back on good terms. And then we do have a bit further back none other than your Premier leader of Samuel Clark. It's not over for Clark yet, because behind him is still the man who wants to steal the championship away from him, albeit Clark can afford to finish second to Ricardo Luis Pereira today, and he would still take home the Premier Crown. But right now, Sam is not one who's just going to let things go idly by, particularly when he knows that he's had race-leading pace all the way through, and the pressure is on Luis Pereira for SimRacing International, saving Privateer Prime, and to make his way a bit closer. In fact, I think he's part of the Pirates of the Caribbean team, or the Privateers of the Caribbean, I should say, to get the team name right as he comes on through turn number 7. And Disney, if you are looking right now, can you please put the lawyers away there, because we decided to change the name rather than make it the full movie name, if you will. But as we do have Ashley Coutland behind him, Coutland has definitely cleared Sparrow, and he's looking to try and take 7th overall off of Luis Pereira. He's going to have to get a bit closer if he wants to do that. And Sparrow, meanwhile, behind in 9th place, where he just continues to wait to see if he can get in the fight with his fellow Premier drivers. But either way, should things finish as they currently stand for Sparrow, it would definitely be one of his best drives of the season, and it would be a result that effectively would see him take his first podium, but it wouldn't be enough to dethrone Alan Lever from 4th place, we believe. So therefore, Sparrow would still finish 5th, but it'd be a much more solid 5th come the end of the championship. But down the start finish straight they come, and as they do, well, Christian Maltrek a little bit further back. He's in 10th, but he's your 3rd pro driver, and he looks most certainly, of course, that 3rd place now in a very safe space. But meanwhile, speaking of not being in a safe space, well, if you're Luke Sherlock, you'd be looking front and rear right now, because you find yourself in a little bit of a crunch. There's Casper Rotten behind the elite driver, and in front there's a pro driver, St. Anthony. And Anthony here has recently found his way past Luke Sherlock, and Sherlock now seems to be very quickly going to fall into the grasp of Casper Rotner as they head across that timing line. And in the battle of the BMWs, with Rotner's on the inside here, Sherlock's just going to hold his racing line. They are fighting for overall position, but Rotner goes all in, and I think Sherlock here is going to take the focus of which is just tucking behind the elite driver and let them pull you along. Particularly when he's got a 13-second gap to James Conley, and I think he is just enjoying right now running in 5th place in class, and therefore having another opportunity to score another top 5. And indeed, a 2nd top 5 of the season, a great end to the season after being perhaps the unluckiest driver on the grid all season long. Indeed, if we had a £1 coin for every time Luke Sherlock was caught up in an instance at the start of the race that wasn't his fault, and he just happened to be in the right place at the wrong time, we would have £8 right now, because all the first 8 rounds of the championship have seen things go long for Luke Sherlock within the opening space of the 10 minutes of the race. But in Australia, it wasn't the case, nor has it been here, it would seem. Coming down in towards turn number 7, I think right now that confidence is only going to be brimming even more, that this has been a season to lay a foundation, and season 17, if he's able to make it, it's going to be a season where he can definitely move forward. But coming back to fighting in the Premier class, we come back to your top 2 with an elite driver here trying to slip his way in amongst them. Ashley Coutland over the back of Luis Pereira right now into turn 1. But the thing is that Samuel Clark will be happy to see that Coutland's getting closer and closer here as we ride aboard on the Ford Mustang. Now for Ashley Coutland, he gets close in towards the S's. Too wide they go here. This is danger territory for the S's. Even with warm tyres, both drivers have got to be a little bit forgiving to each other here. They've got to give each other space, and in the end they do. But understandably, I think Luis Pereira there did lift off a little bit just to let the relentless racing Ford Mustang go. I think the game now will be to let Coutland catch up to Clark and potentially scupper Clark a little bit, and therefore bring the two back to parity. But it's all now about the theory. Can Coutland get close enough to Clark? And if so, can he find a way through? Because Clark, well, he won't want to let the place go, or he'll let it go at a time that suits him. Coming back to the Berry-Brown battle, they're still together here, albeit Berry has opened the gap up slightly to now 7 tenths compared to the previous 4 tenths, but he's still having to work very hard here. I think Alex Brown has still got a bit between his teeth, but the problem is I think he's now running out of tyre life a little bit and the pace that comes with it, as Berry is continuing just to keep that gap at a comfortable margin. Albeit I think he'd like it to be a bit bigger than this. I think he'd like the breathing room as he runs slightly wide of the opening corner. That's going to put him out very wide there, and well, that's going to be an instant point, and he won't want to keep making that mistake because every time he goes wide he gets closer to that 20 limit. We don't know how close he is. We suspect he's not that close to it, to be fair. We don't have that data available. But understandably, Edward Berry right now making a small mistake, and Alex Brown is there to try and capitalise as we jump on board with the number 97. And he looks one way, then the other, but in the end he'll just look round the outside. He'll hold his natural racing line and keep putting that pressure on Berry as much as he possibly can. We have had Coutland find his way past Clark up the road. That's happened off camera. We'll come back to that shortly. But the point being that Ricardo Luis Pereira is now within 3 tenths again, so that battle's been reset. Brown here still keeping the pressure on Berry. And indeed, Edward Berry is not going to be given an easy run to the finish here. Meanwhile, back to Clark versus Luis Pereira, and well, these two are the closest they've ever been this race. And Luis Pereira right now, 7 minutes to the final lap to go, is starting to believe he can make a move. Joe Sparrow, he's 5 seconds behind. He's off the pace of these two, but if they really start to fight, he could be there with the right at the end. So this is not over yet, and we'll wait to see which way the momentum shifts at the closing stages. And we look back for the rear of Samuel Clark for Dexterous Motorsports, and that is what 4 attempts looks like with the concertina effect into turn number 6. It is not a big gap here, and Luis Pereira right now definitely has been the fastest of the Premier drivers in the second half of the season. He has been astronomically quick on several occasions, whether it be in the wet or the dry. But here at Watkins Glen, it does seem as though Samuel Clark's been able to re-establish himself in amongst the league of Luis Pereira, and it's been an important thing to do, because otherwise it would give the man an opportunity. But through turn number 9 they come, through hill in towards the rise. As they do with Samuel Clark right now, all he's got to do is make sure not to make any mistakes, and he might just be able to keep that Aston Martin at bay for a little bit longer. He doesn't need to beat it. To be fair, all he needs to do is finish second to Luis Pereira, and he will still be your Premier champion. But for Samuel Clark, he wants to end the season not just with a crown, but also the cherry on top, which is the race win right at the end. And what better way to lord it over your Premier rivals than make sure the man who finishes second to you is your main rival in the championship. And that's the ultimate bragging rights. But still got some distance, and you can see Luis Pereira, they're so strong out the final corner. And in towards 90 right, that Aston Martin, if he's able to carry the speed in it, he really is able to bring that gap down. And that is what Luis Pereira has been relying on lap after lap. It's just keep it nice and close, keep the pressure on, and that is how he's made these places, even with the drama in the open lap between himself and Sparrow, which they both somehow survived. Here they come then, once again up towards the bus stop chicane. Gap is 2.5 tenths, and Luis Pereira there just watches, he waits, he gets ready to pounce, and 5 minutes is the distance between them and the checkered flag. Back to your Evo leader, here is Simon Hartley. He is still 3 seconds clear of Richard White. The gap to Richard White has gradually come down. In fact, it is 2.6 seconds to be a bit more accurate, but it is oscillating. It's a tenth at most that White is gradually reeling that gap down. Indeed, he's not been able to really pull it down as much as he would like as we take a look to the class standings for a brief period of time, but we can definitely see how that gap is being maintained between them, and we do look to the time delta between the two drivers in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, and there you can see just how much it's been bouncing back and forth. It's not really increased or decreased at any point, and that has been a sign of how Hartley and White have been exchanging those lap times over the best part of the last 6 laps. We'll see what's to come next, because then again tyre life could be a big question mark right at the end of this. But Richard White right now is not giving up here all the way to that finish line as he heads up towards the bus stop chicane. Also a small mistake here could prove absolutely pivotal. And well, for White, it's a gap that's definitely not coming down or going upwards. From them, we look to Sire Anthony, who runs very wide there coming out of toe corner. That's going to be Casper Rotner going his way out the inside. These two previously both in the same class over a couple of seasons ago. But here this season, Casper Rotner an elite driver to Anthony being a pro driver. And in the end, the elite driver finds his way through into 14th overall, with Anthony making an uncharacteristic error there of carrying a bit too much speed for his car's own good coming out to toe bend. And we're very quickly getting it back together, but not without losing that place. Back to then your Premier leaders. Here they come once more, and it's a repeat for the 3rd time, but it's not deja vu, because look how close Luis Pereira is. He doesn't go for it, however, he just waits again. You can understand why, because I think for Luis Pereira, as much as he wants this, he knows even if he gets it, he's not going to become champion. So I think his thought process is get close and only make the move when it's absolutely the right time to do so, because the last thing he wants to do is cause an incident between the two of them, and with that incident will find himself taken to the steward's room, because that's one of the things that both drivers absolutely pride themselves on here, is their ability to drive quickly but also drive professionally. Indeed, you'll very rarely find Clark or Luis Pereira in the steward's room for something, and normally if it is something, it's completely uncharacteristic, or it's because they've been the victim rather than the one who's guilty for it. And as they come down towards us here towards Hill Bend, Pereira watching, but he can't seem to find a doorway into Clark's lead at the moment. As in the Berry Brown battle, that gap has opened up quite a bit more, up to 2 seconds. But hold up a second, we've got a black flag for Luis Pereira, and well, with that, that is going to see him have to take a drive-through penalty before this race is over, or the time will be added on to the end of the race. So the wheels have fallen off the bus there for the SRI driver, and right in the closing stages. That's not the way we want to see it happen, and he comes immediately into the pits here, knowing it's better to take the drive-through than it is to wait until the end of the race, because the race time that's added on is a lot greater. It's the best part of about 50 seconds that's added on, whereas the drive-through penalty here will add about 30 seconds onto his race. So he comes on down, and that releases Joe Sparrow into second. And well, Sparrow will be on course for a podium, and a season best podium at that, as he makes his way around. But goodness me, for what is there, none other than Samuel Clark, that'll be a big breath of relief in the fact he'll be very grateful now not to have that pressure all the way to the end, even if he was enjoying it. Meanwhile, what's absolutely brilliant to see is that Nathan Anstis, after spending the best part of 15 minutes in the pit lane with repair work to the car, he comes back out then to take a final lap or two of the race. He's all the way down in 6th for the Pro class, but to be fair, he's still going to finish this one, which is the racer's spirit absolutely personified. And well, good on the man to make it back out there, even if there's not much time and not many places to be gained. But as we wind this race down, with a minute left, we've got one more lap to go after this one. And Richard Simnor is the man who's going to lead us onto a 35th and final tour of Watkins Glen, and with it our final lap of season 16 of the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship. And as he comes on through right now with a 7.5 second gap to Sean Connor. Connor has been getting that gap down recently, only by a tenth or two. But I think Simnor at this point has realised all he needs to do is get it to the finish. He doesn't need to push any harder. Sean Connor has continued to push because of Krista Halsoy behind him. But the Premier League, well, the Pro leader right now, I think has also recognised the fact that he himself does not need to push this anymore, because he has an 11.5 second gap to Darren Sharples. All he's got to do is get it to that finish line. And the only thing that can stop drivers getting to the finish right now will be black flags or damage to the cars. Hopefully none of that happens. We will wait and see. As all the major battles have ended, and now it's all about just seeing who gets to the finish line first in their classes. Here's Simon Hartley, your Evo leader, who right now, despite the fact he's come into this round with a points deficit to what is Edward Berry by 40 points, that win was what he needed first. He also needed Edward Berry to have a difficult round, but Berry is in third. Between the two of them is Richard White, the man you see here for UKSimRacing. He has thrown everything at this as White to try and take the win here today and take his first win of the season, but it has not come to him so far. But he will have one more tour to do before it's over. And right now, White, after finishing second and third on the podium at least once this season, he'd ideally like to cap it off with a visit to the top step. But he's going to need Simon Hartley to have a difficult final lap or to run out of fuel. And I think Hartley will have done everything right to make sure that does not happen. And to Darren Sharples, here he is, as he has Ryan Davies getting close, and Davies is going to look around the outside here for 4th place overall as these drivers come in towards Toe Bend. Well, Sharples is not going to make it easy for him whatsoever. He's going to make sure it doesn't come to fruition unless Davies goes all in for the move. Looks like Davies is going to look for it into Hill Corner, but with that we need to come back to this man, as he takes the trip wide into the final couple of corners for Richard Simnor. It was Ford versus Ferrari all season, but in the end the Ford from DCW Racing prevails, and Richard Simnor takes victory here at Watkins Glen, and with it takes your elite championship crown for season 16. Sean Connor will be just a little bit further behind as Edward Berry crosses the finish line third in Evo, and provisionally your Evo champion in a critical result. Sean Connor will take second overall and in elite ahead of Krista Halsoy, who's thrown everything at this to be your Pro winner, but I don't think it's enough, as Darren Sharples will take the runner-up spot here in Pro ahead of Ryan Davies at the finish, who takes 5th. Then we have Samuel Clark. He will be your Premier Champion for season 16. What a drive for him, and ends the season on a win ahead of Ashley Coupland, with Joe Sparrow in 8th place just behind, and a season best performance from Sparrow. We'll then have Christian Baltrek take 3rd place on the Pro podium, with Javi Sierra coming home in 10th overall, and it'll be Ricardo Luis pair who threw everything at this, but he has to settle for 3rd in the Premier class, 11th best of the rest overall, with Daniel Page just behind him in a very quiet race there for the old dudes in cars driver. But then it's Mikey Story, and with his 4th place in Pro, 13th overall, we believe he's your provisional Pro champion for this season. Well done to the Dexterous Motorsports driver ahead of Cy Ansley, who takes the 5th place spot in Pro. And then we still got a few more drives to go, as I believe we have got Casper Brotner across the line. Here comes Luke Sherlock for a back-to-back top 5 this season to end this season on a high. Then it will be James Conley who comes out the final corner. He will take 17th place in the end, 6th in Premier, and it will then be a return to the top step in Evo for Simon Hartley. It wasn't enough to dethrone Edward Berry, but he did everything right here to make sure Richard White could not take a 3rd first win, but White takes his second place of the season in Evo, and is your last lead lap finisher in 19th overall. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what an end to the race and what an end to the season it has been. An incredible end at that. And as all our drivers cool on down, it has definitely been a race to be remembered here. Battles up and down the field, championship-defining fights as well. But in the end, the drivers who came into this round as the championship leaders, we believe, have retained the right to their crowns. Richard Simnor most definitely has, albeit I don't think he's got enough fuel to get the DCW Racing 3214 Mustang back into the pit lane. He's going to try, however, but it's limping along and he might need a little bit of a push. But as he makes his way out around here, I think for Richard Simnor right now, it's going to feel a little bit bittersweet in the fact that Joe Nathan wasn't here today to do battle, but at the same time, he'll be very proud of the fact that the results he put in earlier in the season meant that the win was a formality here today in an absolutely titanic fight between the two of them. Sean Connor as well, with a season best finish there, second in Elite and overall. He'll be very happy with that. And Krista Halsoy, well, the Tractix Racing driver, if you can't be champion in Pro, what you can do is end the season on a win and knowing that you absolutely dominated your class today. And that's exactly what Halsoy has done. But as he cools on down, and indeed for Edward Berry in that McLaren, it's going to be a very emotional sit in that car right now. Indeed, for many drivers, it'll be an emotional end to the season for all the right reasons. We see Paul Maffey coming into the pit, and with that picture, we make our way to our race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as our results come up on screen, we start with the overall results, of course, for this race. And for round 10 of 10 here at Watkins Glen International in Season 16 of the SimRacing International hosted UKSimRacing GT3 Championship, brought to you at iRacing. Richard Simnor was your overall winner for DCW Racing by 6.6 seconds over Connor Bros' Sean Connor. It was then third place behind the two elite drivers for the Pro winner, Krista Halsoy for Tractix Racing, who delivered an absolutely formidable race, took pole position and never let it go. And with that rewarded with an overall podium. Darren Sharbles, he was the second best in Pro today for Old Dudes in Cars Blue and absolutely delivered brilliantly by 2 tenths over Ryan Davies, with the Empire Motorsport driver in the end having to settle for 5th, but 3rd in Elite with a great recovery drive. Samuel Clark, premier winner there, 6th place on the road for Dexterous Motorsports, and what a defensive drive from him to make sure that Ricardo Luis Pereira could not get on through, nor Joe Sparrow. Between the two of them, Ashley Coutland there in 7th for Relentless Racing, who relentlessly charged his way up through the field, no pun intended. And then Joe Sparrow taking his first second place finish in the Premier class this season. And a great end to the season for the JSD Motorsports driver, who after all the lows of the season ends on a high. Christian Maltrek, he rounded off the Pro podium there in 9th place, 3rd in class, America MA70 Esports. In a bit of a lonely race for him. And of Javi Sierra, who did well to fight his way through to 10th, having started in 17th. Behind the privateer, it was then best of the rest in 11th, Ricardo Luis Pereira, who was your 3rd place finisher in the Premier class after that late drive-through penalty. The SRI Privateers of the Caribbean drive then being followed up by Daniel Pays and Mikey Story there. 4th in Pro, 13th overall, but we believe provisionally your Pro champion for Dexterous Motorsports. Cy Anthony and Casper Brotner completed your top 15, and then looking outside the top 15 and coming to our Evo podium finishers, you saw Simon Hartley there take the Evo win for DWR with SimCoach setups, ahead of Richard White by 2nd at the finish, and the UKSimRacing Mansell driver not able to make it onto the top step of the podium this season, and having another 2nd place. Edward Berry was classified a lap down, but to him it won't matter. It was 3rd place in the Evo class, and with it the championship crown coming into his hands, and he rounded off your top 20. We won't dwell too much more on what is the overall results. Again, we need to focus on the classes, as that's where the points are made. But we could see from Edward Berry in 20th, who was a lap down. It was the UKSimRacing Hill driver all the way through to a lap down for Jordan Jones in 24th for DWR with SimCoach setups. 3 laps down to Daryl Giacovelli, the privateer. And your last finisher of the race, Nathan Anstis, after a 15-minute repair, the UKSimRacing Mansell team were able to get their driver back out there, and he did finish as classified. It was misfortune and non-finishes, unfortunately, for Shane Connor, also for Joseph Preston, for Darren Giacovelli, Robin Pownier, and we also saw non-finishes for Hendrik Zilker, Wayne Douglas, Matt Hoyland, Joel Alden, and Raz Harper. But from their misfortune, we come now onto the individual class finishing positions, and we always start with the elites. And here we can see Richard Simnor, your elite winner for DCW Racing, comfortably in the end by almost 7 seconds over Connor Bros for Sean Connor, and well, both drivers there delivering absolutely perfect races. Ryan Davies, he had to fight hard for 3rd, and the Empire Motorsport driver doing exactly that. Head of Relentless Races, Ashley Coutland, with Javi Sierra completing the elite top 5. And it was Casper Rock, the last of your finishers, in 6th for Old Dudes in Cars. After an early instant cost him dear, he still kept his head down and brought home some key points. Raz Harper was your sole non-finisher in the elite class, retiring on the opening lap after that huge shunt coming up through the S's, and the DDK Racing Team driver there ending his season in misfortune. In the Pro class, here we saw it was the story of Krista Halsoy today. 12.5 seconds was the gap. The Tractix Racing driver won the race over Old Dudes in Cars Blues' Darren Sharples, who in turn had a comfortable 18-second advantage, if not more, over Christian Maltrek. The America MA70 eSports driver having his own 18-second gap to Mikey Story there for Dexterous Motorsports, but Mikey Story doing enough, we believe, to take the crown. Site Anti for UKSimRacing Price was the last lead lap finisher, and his sister team driver UKSimRacing Mansell was the last classified driver in the class for Nathan Anstis, with Matt Hoyland there retiring after only 2 laps due to a major shunt for Dexterous Motorsports. We'll then come to the Premier class, and here we saw the story was all about who could beat Samuel Clark, and the answer was nobody could today, as the champion took home the crown, and we took it home using a victory for Dexterous Motorsports by 3.5 seconds over Joe Sparrow. Sparrow came close towards the end, but it wasn't enough for JSD Motorsports, but the man in third, who would have been second if it were not for a drive-through, SRI Privateers of the Caribbean, Ricardo Luis Pereira, he puffed, but he blew himself down in the end, and the Portuguese driver not quite able to make it a win right at the end. Daniel Pays, fellow Portuguese driver there, in full for Old Dudes in Cars, but he was 20 seconds clear of privateer Luke Sherlock, who makes it back-to-back top 5 finishes to conclude his season, ahead of James Connolly by 10 seconds. The UKSimRacing Hill drive then giving way to the retirees of Shane Connor, Robin Pownier, Hendrik Zilker and Wayne Douglas. And lastly, in the Evo class, it was all today about Simon Hartley and whether he could hold on for the win. And the answer was yes, he could for DWR with SimCoach setups. And it was 1.5 seconds behind to UKSimRacing Mansell's Richard White, who threw everything at it, but it wasn't enough. Edward Berry classified a lap down, but still takes third for UKSimRacing Hill, and a very happy third at that, ahead of Alex Brown, who chased him hard for it after holding on to it for so long. But the slow and steady racing driver will get his day one day on the podium, but he put on an absolutely brilliant race today, and that fourth place, arguably his best earned result of the season. Thomas Weston in the end, after leading in the early stages, a huge instant cost him dear. You got to feel for him what could have been a 4th win of the season. In the end, it ended up with a 5th place. The priority giving way to Paul Maffey for Phoenix Racing and also Jordan Jones for DWR SimCoach setups. It was 3 laps down to Darren Giacovelli, and then we did have the retirements of Joseph Preston, Darren Giacovelli and Joel Loudon. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional finishing results. And also, it does mean that the racing comes to an end. But don't fret, because unlike our post-round broadcast, we can bring you post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to step away, but we'll be back in approximately 5 to 6 minutes' time to kick off those interviews. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. We will see you very shortly. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And we're going to kick them off by hearing from your elite Drivers' Championship for the season. Indeed, he has been absolutely brilliant throughout. And as he does join me now in the interview room, well, he's in the 3-2-1 car. He made it look as easy as 3-2-1 today. It's Richard Simnor. Good evening to you, Richard. And what a season it has been for yourself. But firstly, how does it feel when I say the words, you are our elite Drivers' Champion for this season?
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, and thanks for having me. Yeah, it feels great. Feels great. I mean, kudos to Joe Nathan. I mean, he wasn't here tonight, unfortunately, but you know, he pushed me the whole way, and I don't think you can really, you know, feel as much achievement as this if you didn't have somebody like him there pushing you the whole way. And you know, credit to him. He passed on some nice messages to me last week. Just to say what a great season it's been, and yeah, miss him tonight. But yeah, it feels fantastic. A little bit tired, I've got to admit, but it's tough around here. It's about an hour long of just like hanging on sometimes and try not to overcook it. But yeah, it's all right.
Oh, indeed. I mean, when you say it like that, you make it sound so straightforward, but understandably, it is tough all the way through the season. I can imagine for anybody in your position, from the start of the season all the way through to the finish, it's been one of those ones where you've had to ride both the rough with the smooth, and well, just put it into perspective, because it's been quite back and forth between yourself and Joe from round to round. There's never been a certainty that you're going to beat him, even at circuits where you feel the stronger of the two.
Yeah, you know, I actually went back, had a look at all the different races and looked at where I was strong and where I wasn't so strong, and you know, how different it could have been in each race. I mean, especially those when we're about a second apart the whole race. You know, notably like Barcelona, that taught me that I really just needed to keep an eye on my fuel. I went hell's bells for the first stint, and then I lost it in the pits. And then you know, in Interlagos, a track that I'm very strong at, you know, I just couldn't get a run on Joe, and his car was just better through the final corner. Caught him absolutely buckets in the middle sector. Every time he built a gap, I just caught it straight back up, and it always felt like all I needed was one run, but I never made it, and it was second place. And then tracks like Hockenheim, where I think historically I've never done as well. I managed to push Joe to his X limit, and he got a big penalty, and I think that was the real turning point of the season. And do you know what? I was just catching up with some of the guys that you're going to be interviewing soon, but we were just talking about Suzuka and how mad that was. You know, all week the official sessions that we base these race sessions off went wet to dry. So I think everybody had sort of practiced with that mindset, and then we turn up and it went wet to monsoon. So it just went completely the opposite way. And I don't classically think I've ever done well in the wet, but apparently it's not a weakness. So that's something to carry forward. But then, yeah, I just sort of hit a stride from then on, and put in some really good performances, and tonight's no exception. I think qualifying, I outdid my own expectations really there, and put in an absolutely great lap. And yeah, it put a smile on my face, I must admit, when I saw it dip below the next second. So yeah, it's been a fun one. But yeah, I mean, even with races like tonight, I mean, I don't think I did a clean session in practice. I think I always crashed. So my mentality had to be just to sort of shave off like 1 or 2% of my own expectation in terms of how I'm going to run that race. And every time I'm coming up to the bus stop, I'm like, just don't blink, just hit your mark, and you'll be fine. And you know, touch wood, this time I managed to make it around the full hour without having any scary moments. But yeah, it's just one of those sort of circuits. Been one of those sort of seasons. Really enjoyed it. Really good competition. I think, you know, Mexico was my low point of the whole season, and I did a race there with another league, and I did just as terribly in that one. So it's obviously a bogey track for me. So I hope it's not on the calendar next year.
Oh, goodness me. Well, really appreciate the insights for your season and talking there about where you really surprised yourself, as well as the moments which you're quite proud of. And talking a little bit about tonight, of course, a brilliant pole position lap from yourself. And from the outset, it looks like you controlled the race, although I suspect a little bit perhaps was aided with the unfortunate demise of Raz Harper at the start.
I looked in my rearview mirror and he was there, and then I got through T 234, and then I looked back and he wasn't, and I was like, oh. I didn't see what happened, so I can only assume cold tires and he hit the wall. But yeah, I don't know how much chaos that caused, but I came around the next lap. There was about 7 or 8 cars in the pits, so a typical Watkins Glen start, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, I knew quali would be really important for this race, and I'd done the mental calculations, like if Joe had turned up and if he'd have won the race, where would I have to sort of finish? It got a bit Lando Norris at one point, but yeah, I was just sort of trying to sort of just focus on just do your job, do what you normally do, just have the right mindset. And then I just put in an absolutely storming lap in quali, and it was good from there. Actually, on the start, Raz did get the slightly better start, and was pulling up alongside, and I thought, okay, well, it's going to be an interesting one, but at least I'm on the inside. Give enough room, got the power on nice and early, and pulled out in front. So at least for me, it went okay. I mean, I really do feel sorry for Raz. I think he probably wanted to have a much better race than he did. But that's just the way things go. I mean, I've had races here where it's happened to me, so I know exactly how it feels.
Or fair play. I mean, like we said earlier, it goes the rough with the smooth, and unfortunately for Raz Harper, it was a very rough race, whereas for yourself, it was a bit more of a smooth one. And of course, looking ahead then into future seasons, I mean, you are an elite champion. We've got a 17th season around the corner coming up in 2026. Can we expect you back on the grid to defend your title for 2026?
Yeah, I think I was the last but one entrant. I left it quite late to decide. My work is quite busy at the moment, so having to sort of judge how much commitments I can make, and I didn't want to sort of overcommit too much. But then I thought, you know what, if I'm going to be champion, I really should be on the grid. So yeah, I'll be there next season. I'm looking at the list already and thinking, well, I'm going to be fairly middling in the elite pack. But then I felt the same about this season as well. I sort of looked at it and thought, okay, there's some really good drivers here. I'll probably end up being sort of 5th, 6th sort of place in the fullness of time. But you've got to attend every single round. That's the first thing. So a lot of people, I don't know why they do, but they'll join for a race or two, have a bad one, and then decide, you know what, this league's not for me. I don't get it. Just keep turning up, because you never know. And that's kind of been my mentality. And here I am on the top step. So yeah, you do never know. Maybe next season I'll be here, champion again. But I have a sneaking suspicion, looking at some of the names, it's going to be a tough ride. But then that's growth for me as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to that growth as you move into Season 17. The fact we've been able to get you back on the grid at the last possible moment is an absolutely huge plus. But as I get ready to let you go and let you celebrate your championship glory, Richard, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Big thank you to you. Big thank you to all the league admins. Big thank you to DCW, and big shout out for us next weekend for Britcar 24.
Well, Richard, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Good luck for yourself and the DCW racing team in the Britcar 24 Hours. We look forward to seeing how you guys get on in one of the toughest events in the sim racing calendar year in, year out. But with that, you've been absolutely superb all season long. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to hear the story from yourself right at the end of the season. You are our provisional elite drivers champion for season 16, a well-deserved champion at that. Well done, and we look forward to seeing you back on the grid in season 17 to defend that right to become a 2-time champion. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy and a very retrospective Richard Simnor, in the fact that it has been a season where he's really surprised himself at certain points, but put together a very strong run of results. But all the way through, one of the things he immediately pointed out, and what's so lovely, and is unfortunate we didn't get to see Joe here today, is that seasons like this are made possible when you have a rival who keeps you honest every step of the way. And that rival was Joe Nathan, who made sure, particularly in the first half of the season, that the pendulum was never swinging one way or the other. It really was back and forth, and it came down sometimes to who put it on pole, not because neither driver could match the other, but because they were so closely matched. But in the end, as we went deeper into the season, we saw the DCW Racing driver start to step ahead a little bit, and in the final 3 rounds, and building up to the season finale, that's where we saw the momentum shift. And, well, coming here to Watkins Glen, unfortunately, Nathan could not be on the grid, but Richard Simnor was the favourite and has confirmed it with a flawless result. Proud of his pole position, and therefore, that was really where he took it from. And it was misfortune for Raz Harper that guaranteed the door would be open and that elite crown would be coming into his hands. And great to know he's going to be back on the grid next season, because I can tell you one thing, with the calibre of the competition we've got signed up, Richard Simnor, if he can hold on to it, is definitely going to make himself a double-deserved defending champion at that. But we'll see in a few weeks' time. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. We'll be back in approximately 30 seconds for our second interview of the night. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come from one champion, and I think you can guess what the theme is going to be here with regards to our interviews for tonight, because we've now got another champion. But rather than go from elite to pro, we're going to do things backwards. We're going to go from elite to Evo. And joining me in the interview room right now, and I bet he's got as big a smile on his face as his avatar has with a strawberry, it's none other than Edward Berry. Good evening to you, Ed.
Oh, how are we doing?
What a
Good evening.
championship
How you
for
doing?
you. How are you doing? How are you, good sir?
Yeah, all good, all good. I mean, I didn't make it easy, did I? Any of them particularly. Sort of all over the place from start to finish, but you know, what an experience. 10 kind of learning opportunities turning up each week, much to the behest of my family, who wondered where I've been disappearing to every Sunday evening. But just what a brilliant experience. My first kind of league, really to speak of, and just starting early, kind of strong, committing to the seat time each week, getting a bit of practice in, spending some time chatting with Nathan and the guys over in the UKSR Discord as well. Great little community over there, obviously part of a bigger picture now, which is great. And kind of just really found the commitment again, and battled throughout with pretty much everybody. So like today, kind of, you know, that was new. Alex and I hadn't really kind of come across each other on track today, and we had a good go at each other, while Simon and Richard skedaddled off in front. Bit of a tricky opening lap. You know, the start was always going to be a bit spicy up the hill. So I got caught up in a little bit there, did the first 16 laps, kind of gritting my teeth as the car almost went straight and I pushed the gas. Got the pit, got the quick repair, and then that was helpful. And then hung on the back of a couple of quick drivers and tried to use as much toe as I could to kind of catch Alex and then ultimately pass him and stay in front. But yeah, it's been a really good season, and looking forward to next time.
And just on that, really appreciate the insight straight away. But something for our viewers as well, you're saying there, and I love it, you didn't make it easy for yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
What was going through your mind as you made you out the hill? Because we caught it and we saw you have to jink at the last possible moment. I mean, was that one of those sort of they say life flashes before your eyes moments?
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's like try and be patient when surrounded by chaos. So like I did an endurance race last night and it was exactly the same, just complete carnage. And I'm thinking, right, 3 hours of what a waste of time. Everything slowed down in front of me. I thought, let's see how we get on. I managed to make my way through, and then I got banged on the back left by a big heavy Mustang, and that was it. Just sort of grit my teeth and tried to give myself a bit of time to think about strategy. Like earlier on in the season, I would have panicked and just towed to pits, and I did that. Actually, I can't remember where it was. I think anyway somewhere, and then realised that I pitted way too early, so I had to pit again for fuel. And so this time it was just let's kind of evaluate. Let's see what state the car's in. Can I drive it for 16, 17 laps? Yes, I can. Don't overdrive it. Just keep it clean. Try and hang on the back of people who don't have damage. So slipstream as best you can. Get the drag. Try and keep some pace. Pit. Don't screw the pit up. Don't speed in the pits. Make sure you don't have your tires. All these things that at the beginning of the league, the beginning of the season, like I just didn't think about, and they all caught me out. Whereas today it kind of came together. Fortunately, well, it came together enough to get P3.
Oh, 100%. And just on that, I mean, we saw in the end how close it was going to be between yourself and Simon Hartley for the crown. You were the favourite coming into this round, but you needed to make sure you landed the key points, and that third place was critical. I mean, just take us through the mindset, because I think for many, obviously, you were the faster driver over the most of the lap, but you've got so much to lose if you get it wrong. Not saying you're going to make contact with Alex, but surely there must have been that niggling thought in the back of your mind as though, if I get this wrong, it's all over.
Yeah, but third's a lot better than fourth in this case. So I knew I was going to have to take some risks. I mean, look, the psychological, like the pressure starts the moment you turn up for the practice session, and you start seeing the lap times come in. And Simon's been quicker than me. He's been slower than me at various tracks. Richard likewise, and of course Tom Weston. Whirlwind Weston, like he's rapid, and like they were putting their times in up the top, and I'm thinking, man, so I'm like fifth or sixth. This could be a bit of a battle. And I got half decent quali time. And I thought, right, okay, so I'm just behind Simon. If I can just stay here, stay out of trouble. I got that bump, and then it's pressure. And you're thinking, right, well, it's too easy now. I can just lose it, lose my head, lose the car, lose the race. So I just thought, like, compose, chill out, enjoy it as well. It's the last race. It's been a lot of fun. I want to take it seriously. I want to commit to it, but we're here to have fun as well. So, like, try and take a bit of pressure off, de-stress, and just run the race. It's something Nathan was saying to me before. I'm like, oh man, I'm slow. These guys are rapid here. He's like, run your race. I said, all right, fair enough. He's a wise man, is Nathan Anstis.
Yeah,
he's a wise man.
Oh, most definitely. And in the end, you were able to find a good place to pass Alex, but he didn't let you go for a while, and you finally broke away. And I do have to ask, how did it feel as you came to that finish line, knowing that being a relative rookie to this grid, you finally become a champion?
It's mega. Like, seriously, Paul, tuning in every Wednesday as well, listening to yourself, commentate on the races, bringing them all to life. It's a buzz, like just watching the playback and everything else. So knowing that I've come away with it, top step, podium in hand, almost. Look, it's great. It's great. I've loved every second of it, and really excited. So thanks a lot, Paul, and thanks a lot to the entire community. Really welcoming. Like I say, so much to learn off so many of the drivers out here. Real, like, mega diversity of skill, big spread. So like the opportunity to hang on the back of some of these elite drivers for a couple of laps, just learn lines, find breaking points, and then jump in the Discord as well through the week. Good positive community, which I think is really important. It's one of the reasons that the community is growing. So yeah, good on the admins for keeping that all on the right track as well.
Oh, indeed. And in terms of being on the right track, you are Evo champion. So does that mean season 17 we can expect you back and perhaps going for glory in Premier?
Yeah, 100%. I think they might pump me up a class, maybe two. So we'll see. I've just got to keep the foot down and keep the head cool, Paul. Do you know what I mean? Don't panic. Just stay calm. And like Nathan says, just run the race.
Oh, fair play and fair play. Well, as we let you run your way to celebrate with your teammates, just before we do let you go, is there anyone else you'd like to say a big thank you to on the broadcast?
Yeah, like I say, everybody really in that UKSR group, Alan Leather, he's got a lot of time committed to the community, and obviously Nathan, Sai, thanks a lot as well for kind of keeping it all together again this season. So yeah, look, it's a great group. And to yourself, Paul, thanks a lot for your efforts and commitment throughout the season. It really does make it a lot more entertaining for us to watch yourselves back with your voice in the background. So appreciate it.
Well, Ed, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for joining me in the interview. You've been a star all the way through the season, and I'm very happy to say once again as we let you go, congratulations on becoming our Season 16 Evo champion. Well deserved. I think you've been one of the fan favourites of the grid all the way through, and we look forward to plenty more racing for yourself in the seasons to come. But until then, my friend, savour it, enjoy it, and have a great rest of your evening.
Wicked. Thanks a lot, Paul. Appreciate it.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Edward Berry, and goodness me, you can hear it in his voice how happy he is and how it's sinking in that he's just pulled it off. And keeping in mind, as he alluded to in that interview, the fact that coming into this season really has been one of the very first times that he's been on a grid in a seasonal format or a league format where the competition has been close to the top, and he's been right at the precipice all the way through. And admitting there, he's practically had to battle with every driver in the Evo class throughout the season, and he's got to know several of them, including Richard White and Simon Hartley. But here today, he had to learn about battling Alex Brown, and all the replay footage you've seen in the background has been the two of them on the opening stint. That is how close they've been together, but how close it could have been to pieces as well. Many of you will remember, as he alluded to as well, the mistake at what was at turns 2 and 3 on the open lap, where he had to jink very quickly out of the way of a sideways car, only to make contact with the old Loudon's Mustang. But in the end, survived it, took the fast repair, and then he knew he needed to finish third in order to guarantee his championship crown. That's exactly what he did after an incredible battle back and forth with Alex Brown. And looking ahead to next season, he's looking forward to the prospect of being back once again, giving it his all. But right to the heart of all his push and motivation, the UK SimRacing Hill driver has been a team, friends, and a community that has supported him every step of the way. And it's so lovely to hear. And definitely right now, I can understand if quite a fine set of emotions have come both his and also to many of our ways. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another interview coming up very shortly. And, well, which of our champions are we going to next? Because there is a surprise with one of our champions, and that will be revealed sooner rather than later. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to interviewing our pro champion, but against what we said earlier, and I do apologise for it, recalculating the championship points by 2 points. Joining me now in the interview room is your pro champion provisionally. It is Krista Halsoy, who's pulled it off right at the close with robbery at Watkins Glen. Krista, how do you do it, my friend? Because this is not the first time you snuck your way to a championship crown right at the end of a season for Tractics Racing. Well done, firstly. You must be absolutely pleased.
Yeah, thank you. And no, it's been, I actually didn't know until very recently, because I haven't dared looking at the results and see how many points were in either direction. I was perfectly happy with ending up P2 behind Mikey's, who's had a fantastic start to the season and been a bit unlucky in the later races. But no, it's just trying to stay consistent and try and do as best as you can on each individual track. There's been a lot of different driving styles required this season on the different types of tracks, and I've jokingly said this is a season that's been built to fight against me, because most of these tracks I consider myself bad at. So it's been quite a challenge.
Oh, it's definitely been a challenge, but you've risen to the occasion throughout. And one of the things that we can definitely say this season is we like to refer to you in some respects as consistent Krista, because you are one of the most consistent drivers on the grid, and you gradually built up to some great results. But something tells me at the heart of that has been an Aston Martin that you've definitely bonded well with this season.
Yes. I was like right before this season, I drove the Corvette last season and truly fell in love with that car as well. And I didn't actually choose between them until 5 minutes before the very first race, and it's been a fantastic platform to drive. It's pretty easy to understand what's going on with it. It has its weaknesses, but overall it's been really good at pretty much everything. At least in my hands. So I'm pretty sure there's people that are much faster in other cars, but this is about as fast as I get in GT3s, I think, with this one.
Well, you've definitely pushed yourself to the limit. And talking about tonight, I mean, that pole position in Pro Class, 4th overall as well, it was a lightning quick lap. You must have been proud of it.
Yes, though, I mean, okay, this might come off wrong, but I'm kind of disappointed I didn't go faster, because I did have a little bit more in it, but I did a few mistakes. So obviously I didn't have more in it at the time. But I'm very happy with it still when I saw where I ended up. But it's of all the tracks this season, this is probably the only track I kind of knew going in that this race I can do well, because I genuinely adore Watkins Glen, and it may be a bit of a hot take in some circles, but I actually prefer this new version with the new curbs and the bus stop over the old one.
Well, you definitely showed your preference for it and your abilities at Watkins Glen, and throughout the race distance, we saw you manage quite a comfortable gap to Darren Sharples, who was the best of the rest in the Pro class today. Was there a bit of a temptation to fight harder with Sean Connor? Because we could see you get very close to him at a certain point, and I do wonder whether part of you was going, go on, I can take second place overall, and another part was going, actually, I don't want to risk losing the Pro League because I might end up winning the championship.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much exactly it. I told Connor after in the chat room here before that I was kind of like, okay, maybe, but I was very happy sitting behind him. He drives really smooth and nice, very predictable. So it's just a pleasure to be behind and sit there and just chill and enjoy the track. There was a moment after the pit stop where he was a bit slow out of the pits. And he told me he was afraid that I might actually dive him or make a move on him. And I tried to the best of my ability to use body language with cars to say, no, you go. I'm happy to sit here. But I kind of tempted to try and push him into Richard, but Richard was just way too fast. Yeah, there was no chance of trying to help him to get into a battle for that.
All fair play. Well, definitely, I think you got it right today. And with that win, I mean, taking the championship by 2 points, it's been a season, like you said earlier on, where you've had to do a lot of learning over the season, particularly with the variety of circuits. But if you had to look back over the 10 rounds and name one thing that stood out as your highlight for the season, what would it be?
And again, this might be a controversial take, but Suzuka. I really enjoy challenging conditions, and even though maybe you can make the argument that the conditions we drove at Suzuka were maybe a bit too extreme, where it probably would have been red flagged basically no matter what race series in a real race. Just having to dance with the car the entire time, not knowing what's in front of you, because I was trailing a car basically that entire race too. And just having to use everything about the track. So, there's something off the track before this corner. So now I can see that, which means I'm coming up to the corner. Because seeing ahead of the car in front of you was basically impossible for the majority of the race. But the extra added challenge to that, and just for the first time driving the Aston in the wet, was very enjoyable. Even though I might have gotten a bit heated up in sitting in the rig because it was quite stressful. I do really enjoy that one.
All fair play. Well, definitely in those challenging conditions, you showed us exactly what champions are made of when it comes to metal, and a brilliant drive at that. And it's been such a superb season. I do have to ask, next season, can we expect you back on the grid? And if so, will you be pushing for glory in Elite?
I wouldn't stand a chance in Elite against the fast drivers in that class. That would be way outside of my reach. But I unfortunately haven't signed on yet. I may get on the waiting list. There's just a bit uncertainty going on whether or not I can do anything on Sundays. But so if there happens to be an open slot just before it starts, and I'm on the reserve list and anyone wants me in, I might take them up on that, but I haven't registered for next season now.
Well, that's absolutely fair. If you can't commit to it, then understandably, having you perhaps on the reserve list for later on in the season, we'd love to see you there, even if it is just a guest appearance. I mean, Krista, you've been incredible all season long, and I do get ready to let you go and celebrate. One final question, as always, is if you want to give anyone a shout out, who would it be on the broadcast tonight?
Well, obviously, I have to shout out my friends and teammates for both helping myself get faster and driving better, as well as the general competition on track, all the drivers have been fantastic for pretty much the most part, and also as well you, of course. And I almost feel sad that Mikey lost it by 2 points because he's had such a fantastic season as well. So I as a slightly special shout out for him to giving me very good competition and being very fair the entire season as well.
Oh, fair play, Krista. I'm sure Mikey will appreciate that. And indeed, the finest margin we have seen in a very long time in the UK SimRacing GT3 Championship for 2 drives to be separated at the end. But only one can be champion, and it is yourself tonight. Congratulations once again, and thank you for joining me for an interview come the end of the season. We hope to see you back on the grid at some point soon. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening. So hearing that, ladies and gentlemen, from Krista Halsoy, very proud of what he's been able to achieve this season, no doubt about it. And talking about there, right at the end, about feeling a little bit sad for Mikey Story, given the fact that when you look across both drivers' championships, Mikey Story did, in the end, I believe, have one more win to Krista Halsoy's. But with the way the drop scores playing, those drop scores there to essentially enable drivers who can't complete all 10 rounds to have a chance at the championship, like those who can complete every one. In the end, when all was settled and done, it was the podiums that made the difference. With Krista Halsoy having 3 wins, 3 third places and a second, whereas Mikey Story 4 wins and a second and then a couple of top 5s. And that was the swinging scales between the two of them. Indeed, so tight in the end, 2 points as the difference, but Halsoy taking it. Unfortunately, he may not be able to make it onto the grid in any guise in Season 17, but understandable if he can't commit to it. We completely understand his reasons why, but he's definitely been an absolute star. He's always great whenever you see him out on the grid, and we hope to see him and the Tractix Racing team once again on the grid soon, whether it be an Aston Martin or Corvette or otherwise, because you know he's always going to give it his all. But, well, ladies and gents, we've got one final interview to come. We will be back in approximately 10 to 20 seconds' time for our final interview of the night. And well, ladies and gentlemen, he's waited like a saint for the best part of the last half an hour. He joins me now in the interview room. We, of course, have to come to our Premier Drivers' Champion, Samuel Clark. Sam, congratulations to you on taking the Premier Championship. I mean, as far as crowning races go, this has got to be up there as well, the finest. You were put under pressure, but you never wilted, and you took the win from both Ricardo Luis Pereira and also Joe Sparrow. How does it make you feel, good sir?
Hello, Paul. No, you're very kind, thank you. Yeah, still taking it in, really. It's been a good couple of... It's been a great season.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I can tell you're still soaking in the glory, but a great season. A season that's kept you guessing, however. There's been highs, there's been lows. But here today, an absolutely huge high, starting off with an absolutely ferocious pole lap.
Yeah, that one caught me by surprise. I think it was my second or third quali lap, and just sort of knuckled down, got on with it, remembered all the things that the good Andrew Dawson has taught me, and it all came together really nicely.
Oh, indeed, it came together very well for yourself, although I do have to ask, qualifying is just one part of the story, 60 minutes of racing is another part. We saw, despite damage on both of their cars, Luis Pereira and also Sparrow at different points, both getting close and both looking for the moves on yourself. I mean, were you at any point thinking to yourself, I can actually just let them go and I'll still take the championship? Was your brain very much set on, I must win, because it's what racing drivers do? We don't give way.
Yeah, to be honest, this was a very strategically thought race. If they were going to put a move on, I would have let it happen, because I knew what I would have needed to do to win the drivers. And yeah, I would have just let it happen. I know that's not very exciting for you and the viewers, but it is what it is.
All fair play. It's always good to hear those thoughts, because we could definitely see it getting closer and closer, but the move never really came. And in the end, Luis Pereira had to surf that drive through penalty, which settled the difference. But talking a little bit about this McLaren that you've been driving all season long, it's been a car that's gone very well in UK full hands. I mean, have you learned more about it as the season has gone on, or has it been a car that you've just found, you know what, it's like a comfy pair of slippers. It goes well, and it's taken me to another crown?
Well, I think it's the best car in the service, frankly. I started off with it last season in ESR. Didn't enjoy it for the first 3 or 4, but I stuck with it, and yeah, I really get on with the car now, and there's still a lot to be learned with it, and with some sort of support from teammates and some coaching, I feel like I'm extracting a lot from it.
Oh, most definitely. And what you've been extracting for it over the season has been highly impressive. I mean, when we look back at your record for this season, a grand total of 4 wins. Well, in fact, let me just rephrase it. You've never once finished off the podium. I don't think we've had that happen in about 4 to 5 seasons. I think you've set a bit of a record there with regards to the number of podiums. I mean, is that something you've been keeping track of, your run of podiums since round 1?
I'd say after round 4 or 5, I've begun to notice it. Yes, it's a point of pride, but I just frankly say, like, if you remain consistent, you race smart, it will sort of happen, I suspect. And you know, with the pace of the macro that I seem to be able to sort of extract from it, you know, it's been nice. It's been a nice little accolade, I think.
Oh, 100%. A great accolade. And off the back of that, I have to ask, if there's one highlight from the season or one round which will always stand out to you, which one will it be?
Oh, tricky one. Probably Suzuka in the wet, just because how difficult it was in terms of the visibility, just the unpredictable nature of what's going on around you, and by the end of it, realizing that everyone around you is, you know, smart enough to recognize the treacherous conditions and to, you know, be reliable and sort of semi-predictable, and not adding to the worry of the wet weather and the lack of visibility. So yeah, I'd say Suzuka.
Oh, fair play. Well, there may have been a lack of visibility at Suzuka, but in terms of your vision going forward, you are, of course, our Premier Champion for this season. What's next? Can we expect you back on the grid in Season 17 to either defend the crown or go into Pro?
So, yeah, no, I will be back for Sundays. I'm going to be going into Pro, just to go after that next challenge and sort of see what I can learn from Pro drivers, and see if I can extract more from the McLaren next season.
Oh, fair play. I mean, we look forward to seeing you rise to the challenge with what's ahead next season. But just as we get ready to let you go and savour the moment and the fact you are our Premier Champion, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to? Because I do believe week in, week out, you've got quite a fan base that follows you.
Yeah, yeah, so, yeah. Obviously, a big shout out to the boys. They're great. They're a good laugh as well, and they've been very supportive of all this. It's even drawn 2 of them into sim racing. My Izzy, she's fantastic. Love her to bits, and of course my teammates, Matt Hoyland and Mikey Story. You know, they have been fantastic, and the whole DXT team. You know, my first sort of team in sim racing, and you know, I have no regrets. They're fantastic, and I hope I race with them for a long time.
Oh, fantastic. Well, they've definitely got an absolutely brilliant, not just a driver, but a person yourself as part of the Dexterous Motorsports team, Sam. I can tell that. Congratulations once again on becoming our Premier Drivers' Champion for this season. A well-deserved award, and in the end, in a race that really encapsulated why you are our champion for this season. We look forward to seeing you back on the grid next year to defend the crown in Season 17, or go onto the Pro Class, I should say, and rise even higher. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Take care, Paul. Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of the night, our 4th and final champion, of course, the Premier Drivers' Champion, Samuel Clark for Dexterous Motorsports, talking about there, firstly, just how he played the race day. Very happy with that pole lap for Premier Pole, but knowing the job wasn't going to be easy when you've got two very fast drivers behind you, but openly admitting if the pressure really built, he would have let it go to make sure he became Premier Champion. And there's nothing wrong in that. If anybody was getting ready to throw their proverbial tomatoes or cabbages at the screen and boo and hiss, he knew exactly what he needed to do today, and that's why he said it. Because at the end of the day, championships are won not just by being the fastest driver out there, but also being one of the smarter drivers when you need it to happen. But it did lead to a very brilliant chase from Ricardo Luis Pereira. It didn't quite work out for the Portuguese driver, and the Briton in the end was able to claim not just his championship crown, but a win at the end. And it's been great. It will be great to see him move into the Pro Class next season and see how he rises further in a McLaren that he definitely feels though he's getting the most out of week in, week out. And I suspect next season he'll be targeting not just top fives but podiums quite early on, given what he's brought to the table today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our interviews for this season, and a huge thank you to all four of our drivers' champions for offering up their time this evening, and well done to them all for becoming champions. We heard firstly from our elite drivers' champion of Richard Simnor for DCW Racing. We then went to the Evo class to hear from UKSimRacing Hill's Edward Berry. Then we went back to the Pro class to talk to Tractix Racing's Krista Halsoy, and we just heard from Samuel Clark from Dexterous Motorsports. All deserved champions, all pushed the distance round after round. Nobody's had an easy ride here in Season 16. That's what we love to see, and have all come through as victors. Thank you to them all for their time, and well done to them all for their great performances, and we look forward to, of course, plenty more from them as the seasons go ahead. Presuming they're back on the grid, of course. But until then, it is now time, of course, for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the SimRacing International community and how you can be on the grid for a future season of racing as we wind down our racing for 2025 and get set for 2026, well, all you need to do is join the official Discord, invite link at the bottom of the screen. But in between our logo and the invite at the bottom of the screen, there's just a summary of what racing we've had on in recent weeks, including, of course, the Thursday evening GT3 Championship, sponsored by Trophy.ai and SimCoach, which has recently come to a close, but sign-ups are open for Season 11, and you'll catch the commentary team that you've had tonight there in Split A, and we, of course, do have the very talented Chaz Draycott and also Darragh Thacker covering Split B, as we have four classes of drivers all competing for glory there. But if you're more of a weekend racer, well, don't fret, because we do have Season 17 of the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship around the corner, and more on that very shortly, telling you about what's coming up next in that, but that'll be on Sunday evenings. We also do have the America's GT Challenge Championship, which still has 2 rounds to go, and that's on alternating Sunday evenings every 2 weeks. We have GTEs and GT3s doing battle with each other, lap after lap, round after round. But if you're looking for something a bit more casual, or perhaps you're just looking to practice, you can, of course, join our free-to-join Practice League, which runs on Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. So there's something for everybody here at SimRacing International, and as we make our way into 2026, that's only going to continue. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our league and series sponsors. We do include, of course, Trophy.ai, CarMate, More Than Technology, SimCoach, where you unlock your true potential, and the GP2 group. And also, we'd like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for continuing to recognise us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and we look forward to continuing our relationship with Motorsport UK going into next year. So with that, that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for Season 16. We have brought the curtain down, but do not worry, because we will be back in 2026 for the 17th season of the UKSimRacing Community GT3 Championship, and it all begins again on Sunday the 4th of January, and goodness me, what a season we've got ahead. Now, we don't quite know the calendar as of yet. That is still being worked out as we get ready to follow the official iRacing GT3 series, but what we can tell you about is what's in store for next season. Firstly, we can see with an all-new season, we have an all-new set of trophies to give away, and these much-coveted trophies, as you can see there, with sign-up still open, albeit I think the grid is already fully populated, and you'll need to put yourself on a reserve list. Well, there's going to be 60 drivers on the grid, all competing for glory, and in particular, to take home one of those absolutely lovely trophies, which announces just how well you've done over the season, and even earmarks your car, team, and all your results. But as our drivers all get set to go on that grid, we'll do keep in mind that we will see the grid populated by 3 championship classes. We'll have your elites, your pros, and your inters. We are going to see the classes of Evo and Premier merge together, and the idea being here is the fact that we will have classes of approximately 20 drivers each, just so that way we can keep the racing even more intense, given we had quite a bit of an overlap between our Premier and Evo drivers this season. We're always looking to adapt and evolve here at SimRacing International, and that's why we are making that class change. But don't fret, because there's still going to be plenty of racing, and there's going to be plenty of personalised driver trophies to be up for grabs, with 35 in total. Of course, you will have all your racing broadcasted. We will see it go via post-round broadcast once again, and myself, my name Paul Walsh, of course, or TX141, I'll be bringing all your racing action as the season goes on, each and every round, and well, what a championship we'll have ahead of us. And you can see there, and subject to the number of sign-ups from each of our classes, there will be approximately 6 trophies up for grabs for the top 6 in the Elite, Pro and Inter classes, and we'll also see trophies for all the drivers in the top 5 teams. And well, there will be some very highly coveted trophies at that, and we now just need a confirmed schedule. But it's not quite confirmed as of yet, but it will be confirmed in the coming weeks. So if you want to get on the grid, make sure you do sign up, and indeed get yourself on that waiting list if it's already fully populated, because places go quickly, but we'd love to see you on the grid competing for glory in Season 17 of the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship. And remember, save the date, Sunday the 4th of January 2026 is when it all gets underway once again. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we must bring this broadcast to a close. It's been absolutely brilliant Season 16, I'm sure you'll agree with me, and when we go into the new year, there'll be plenty more racing to come. But until then, we have been SimRacing International. This has been Season 16 of the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship, and I have been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.